Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Stay Report. I'm your host, Devin Decker, and joining me, my partner in crime, my host companion, here to relive our glory days, is the one and only, Sejan Sarowick. Sejan.
I mean, I don't know about you, Dev, but this was not very reflective of my glory days, so...
No, it wasn't very reflective of my glory days either. However, I don't know. I know you're off Twitter, but are you off of the Facebook?
Yes, I've been off of Facebook longer than I've been off of Twitter. I haven't touched Facebook.
Okay, so then you were not inundated this morning as you woke up with memories from our college graduation, which was, and this is true, 14 years ago to the day that we are recording this.
Excellent.
So that's something. I mean, technically, I was supposed to graduate a year earlier, which also weirdly was on May 21st. I don't know how that worked out, that in 2008, the graduation was on the 21st, which would have been a Saturday. And then in 2009, it was on the 21st as a Sunday. I just know that that's what happened. And I also know that unlike Ben Affleck in the film that we're featuring for Brendan Fraser History Month this episode, my parents did not come to either graduation, though I went to both of them. And not really in a whole, like, French Stewart sort of way, like we've seen you do this before, but it was more in a, and I want to stress right now that this is not something that I'm upset about. It's just a thing that happened in my life. And it relates to what we're going to be talking about in this episode. But they're like, you don't seem to care that you're graduating, so why should we waste our time at your graduation? And I can't fault them for that. Graduation has never really been something I've been a huge fan of. I mean, it's as
finishing things. Like, what do you mean by that?
I guess.
Or do you just mean like the pomp and circumstance of like the graduation ceremony?
So I don't need that pomp and circumstance for finishing school. I think that there are other things in life that are worth celebrating, and I never really saw that as one. And that is as someone who, I turned school into a struggle for me. Not like academically, but socially. I viewed most of my teachers as adversaries. So, getting my small victories against them, those were the roll credits moments for me. So, graduation, this big communal roll credits moment for everybody who, just happened to start school at the same time, I never really understood it. And that, again, that's totally me speaking. But, it's I know, maybe 30 people who are also graduating today. So, who the fuck are these other 400 people?
Yeah, I mean, the big thing is that graduation is emblematic of a larger systemic issue with education in general in this country, in this world. And that is the way that we compartmentalize it and try and make it equal for all. And while I feel strongly, I should make sure, I guess I clarify this, that everybody has the right to an education, not everybody has the right to the same education, nor needs the same education. There are people out there that require more from us, and there are people out there who require less. How too often do we hear about these people that, and I think that this is something that these movies, these types of slacker comedies always try to to lean on, is this idea that it's not that this person is not capable, it's that school is not giving them enough, right? This idea that they're bored, the bored genius is a common trope in these types of stories. But yeah, this idea being that what graduation exemplifies is this idea that, hey, congratulations, you all made it through this trying time together in this forced structure to stick with one another. There's a lot of stuff there's a lot of caveats, there's a lot of hats you have to kind of hang on the concept of graduation to get on board with it. And the thing is that for a lot of people that's just there. For you, that facade was pulled off. You think about it this way. Think about how important graduation seems to be to everybody, and then think about how important class reunions are, and it's a little less. And then it's oh, the 20-year class reunion, we're not doing that. And then Facebook kind of really pulled the veil off. As long as I can talk to a couple of people, I have no interest in interacting with, as you mentioned, the other 400 people in this room anymore, right? We have slowly kind of backed away from this whole idea that high school college court classes, like these are the people that are going to be in your lives forever. Like we all know that that's bullshit now, and so we don't really we things like graduation feel a lot less important when the community around you feels a lot smaller and stuff like that, for sure. But I think that that's something that these kinds of movies have always kind of explored, and I'm putting that very generously when I talk about the movie Glory Days. But I feel like what you're getting at is this kind of feeling of like this waning respect for the idea that like we need this one moment to mark that we all achieved this thing. I don't think you're the only person in the world that feels that. I think there's a lot of people that do. I had a lot of friends that didn't want to walk because they just didn't see the point in it either. But of course, their parents made them. You were not in a position to have that where your parents were pretty much on board with you, like on the same page as you. As much as you told that story in a way that really makes you all seem like a bunch of villains, I don't actually think what any of you said was really villainous.
Yeah. Well, the only reason that I wanted to walk the first time was, I mean, I think I've told the story before, but like as it came down to it, I thought I wasn't going to graduate in 2008. And then it was presented to me that like, you have one incomplete that you need to complete. And literally to do that, you need to write a paper for your Shakespeare theatrical history course. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, that's really it? Like, I thought that I had more due. And the professor's like, no, I just need this final paper. You will pass if you hand me a paper that is like readable and has like base level paper. Like this course, and this is another issue that I have with education like now, is that most bachelor programs, because it just feels like high school plus in a lot of ways, do not feel as meaningful, right? Like a bachelor's degree doesn't separate you the wheat from the chaff the way that it used to. Now you need that master's degree to actually have your degree sort of mean something. And there was no bigger moment that was exemplified than when the professor looked at me and said, if you write a paper that fulfills all of the like requirements of this, I will pass you for the course and you can graduate and get your life started. And I'm like, oh, cool. I could do that in a night. And I wrote a 13-page paper talking about Shakespearean adaptations in modern entertainment, because it's not that Shakespeare hasn't been, adapted thousands of times, but in the 90s, and a lot of people would probably put it Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet, but it really, for me, stems from the dual Macbeths that we had, the dual Hamlets that we had in the Mel Gibson Hamlet and I can't think of his name, but he directed Thor. Richard Branagh. I cannot believe that's how I did that. Kenneth Branagh. Sorry.
Kenneth Branagh and his Much Ado About Nothing would really be the thing that kicks off the 90s Shakespeare craze with our boy Keanu Reeves in it and stuff like that. Yeah. He does end up going on to do Hamlet for sure, but Kenneth Branagh has a few Shakespeares throughout.
Oh yeah,
the 90s.
So I guess the reason why like Much Ado About Nothing is definitely the match that starts the fire, but Hamlet, when there are two Hamlet movies in theaters right around the same time,
right.
Like that's kind of crazy. Like that says that we think that this is a viable thing. And then we go forward and we're like, well, teens kind of liked it, as evidenced by that scene in Clueless, right? Like that scene in Clueless is fantastic when Cher's able to school the like college age student by like, no, it was Polonius who said that. Like, don't try to like front on me. Mel Gibson was in that movie topless. And it's like, that's great. So then they start dumbing him down. Not dumbing him down is wrong, but like teen, like aimed adaptations, like 10 Things I Hate About You was Taming of the Shrew, and like Whatever It Takes, which I know is not Shakespeare, but it's Cyrano de Bergerac. She's All That. These were all things that were happening like around us. So I wrote this thing comparing like the why of it and how culture has grown there and why they would try to instill that love of Shakespeare in like the class that's coming up, and how like it will affect their creativity going forward, having this respect for what he did. And here's the problem with writing a paper on William Shakespeare. You have to write the word Shakespeare so many times to the fact that like it stops having meaning. So after about
It
8.
just like there's no like cute nicknames for him. You can't be like Billy Shakes, as the great Billy Shakes once said.
Well, I tried. After writing Shakespeare 8 times, every time I had to come up with it, I came up with a more absurd, more familiar nickname for William Shakespeare. To the fact that when I handed this paper, and it was a paper that I was proud of, I had like put in some research, and I handed it to the professor, and I got the angriest email from him saying that it was an insult to William Shakespeare. It was an insult to him. It read as if something that would be published in Tiger Beat magazine. That's what he said to me. This is via email. And I replied to that email simply with, "So you saying it's worthy of publication?" And I was given an F right there on the spot. So graduation, which I thought was like a brass ring I could grab, was taken away from me. And over the next year, I ended up having to complete my theatrical history requirements.
If I would say it was taken away, I think I'd continue the metaphor and say you threw it straight into the clown's mouth.
Oh, yeah, right? I guess I don't know how many people understand, like, that part of the carousel.
No, but
like
that's it's not hard to go from one step to the other. That you grabbed the ring and you hucked it.
Yeah, I got rid of the ring.
Ran up to you and wrestled it away.
Yeah. So I mean, and I will fully own that. Like, that was my fault. I got bored while writing the paper. I tried to make it fun for me while still staying academic. The professor, who was sort of handing me a lifeline, I was insulted by that, and I ended up going to another school, taking a theater history class, realizing that theater history classes across the board in the state of Rhode Island, I'll say it, I don't care, are a fucking joke, because it's usually people who are not theatrical history, like, focused. It's probably like an acting teacher who just happens to be teaching the class in order to get their faculty load hours for the semester, so that they can, also direct a show in that theater department. Because that was, like, I took the teachers out and I'm like, look, this is a class I need to get my degree. I already had problems with this at URI. I'm seeing a lot of the same problems. Can you and me
just to be clear, your issue is that there is not a specific level of theater historian that stood in front of you to teach you theater history.
No. My issue with theater history classes, as I have taken them, and I have taken more than most, is what I will say. And I'll give the number, right? I took 6 different theatrical history courses before that one barrier to my graduation with my college degree was finally cleared. Is every theater history course I took had the students teaching, like, different sections of the material.
That's college 101, my dude.
I know.
I hate in front of the class and talk about the material. It actually forces them to engage with it.
And I hate it.
It's not the best way for everybody, but you can hit 80% of your audience by having them engage with the work in that fashion. Yeah. That is how college works.
I understand that. No, and I get it. It's just and whenever I found a course that was like that, I would be able to get out of it and pivot to one that was not that style of learning, right? I don't really like. I don't enjoy that type of learning.
The history of academia is to
teach others. Yes, create academics. I understand that.
Right. So you paid thousands of dollars, went to college. They said, "Hey, this is college." You said, "No."
But I was able to find ones that fit my learning style.
Yes,
except for theater history. Well, no, in theater history, I never was able to. I ended up making a side deal with the professor, and that's how I got through it. And not like a crazy side deal.
We live in an era where people want to demonize colleges because they're like, what are we doing? We're just teaching people just more shit to then teach more people. And it's like, that's been the history of college is. Since the Greeks and the Romans. Like, that is the point of like the intellectuals out there, and the idea of the apprentice and all of that shit is like, yep, we are passing down the knowledge to the next generation. And the thing is that in this country, we decided at some point, and this is a kind of a world thing, but it is very much present in America. We decided at some point that everybody needed to go to college, and like that's not the case. We just need a few people every generation to go to college to continue like bringing the knowledge forward. The problem is though, is that we've gotten very much to the point where we don't trust other people. We need to know it for ourselves. So that's why everybody has to go to college, because everybody has to learn for themselves this information rather than trusting a handful of individuals that we say, well, they are in this academic setting. They are the keepers of this knowledge. We respect that. We don't anymore. So everybody needs to go for themselves in order to figure it out, just to make sure that nobody else is trying to get one up on them.
Yeah. I mean, there's also the propaganda platforms from the 90s where there wasn't really a war going on, so we needed to convince everybody that they needed an education. Quickest way to do
talk about this movie for the first time in 20 minutes, that is like a huge thing about this kind of slacker comedy in the 90s, is that the problem is that when you're doing it at the college level, right? Because there's tons of slacker comedies all throughout the 90s. That's like, like we talk about them left, right, and center. But in these particular ones, the subgenre of the college slacker comedy, like really, really struggles for me, at least as an audience member watching these guys in the 90s, because like there's not a larger, so we talk about this a lot, like there's not a larger issue going on, which is bullshit. There are tons of larger issues, but this idea that is that the 90s is this era of American exceptionalism, right, where we can kind of do no wrong, and what that really means is older white males can do no wrong, right? Like, and this idea being that these other problems were not absent, the Me Too movement, BLM, all that sort of shit. Like people want to talk about these things being new and something a product of the 2010s and the 2020s and stuff, but it's like, no, these problems have always been present. It's just that now we have a face to the opposition, which is good. We needed it all along. But in the 90s, the kind of culture that we were purveying in our media was one where there weren't any larger issues for the country to be dealing with any longer. Like you said, there wasn't a war going on, but they're also like, we also weren't in debt. We finally had a surplus, so that, and we were starting to get there by 96 when this movie gets made and stuff like that. Like we're in this weird position where we're all doing all right, supposedly. Again, this is not true. But the artists that are making movies at this time, these, again, older white dudes, don't really have like anything to push against. And then Glory Days takes this a step further. Not only does it really not have much to say, because there's not much going on for these guys in the 90s anyway, on top of that, it adds this whole spin to it where it tries so fucking hard to be punk in this area where, like, in this era, in this area, in this setting, that it rings so fucking hollow. Right? Because I'm watching this movie, and all I'm thinking the entire time is all of these other movies that are doing this kind of shit better, including the punk thing. Because it's not 2 years later, I think 98 is when SLC Punk comes out with Matthew Lillard, and it is like groundbreaking in the ways in which it addresses punk in the late 90s. And this idea of like, can it survive in this era of exceptionalism where there isn't really like a huge counter movement, because the pervasive movement right now is doing all right. Now, of course, this all goes to fucking pot, like, not 10 years later. And again, this is also ignoring a lot of societal issues that are happening. But because certain people are doing okay, that means that all of media is pretty much stuck in this weird realm of we don't know what the fuck to talk about. And Glory Days is like the exemplification of exactly this. Is like, we have these guys that are at this point in college. They're only there because this is just what everybody else is doing, but not because they want to be there. And like, they don't know what to do with themselves, because they're also clearly none of them in a position to need fucking money. As much as this movie wants to talk about money as if it's an issue for these guys from time to time, there's so much happening in this movie where I'm just like, are they really that hard up though? Like,
yeah, even the character who is the most slacker of the five main guys, right? Like, that's the other thing, is that you keep calling this a college slacker film. I don't believe that any of them slacked off at college.
I mean, I'm not calling it that out of my own ass. It sells itself.
That's what it sells itself as, and all that. Like, the slacker comedy, like, Half-Baked feels like a slacker comedy, as much as it's also like a stoner comedy. Like, yes, he goes to work as a janitor, and he's happy as a janitor in Half-Baked, but then they're not really doing anything else. All of them are graduating except for Slosh. Slosh is the only one who's not graduating. And like Mickey, who like has probably like a couple extra credits to finish, right? That's the realest part of this movie, is the character of Mickey, who was a freshman at the same time that Ben Affleck's Jack was a freshman, but he still has a year left of school. Because that is something that was becoming the norm at this time, and then really doesn't come to a head until you and I are in college. Like the idea of like college is no longer a 4-year degree. It's sort of grown to this 5-year thing. And a lot of that was stemming from, and this is all fact that I'm talking about, that they were shortening credit limits so that you could only take X amount of courses per semester, or your advisors were advising you to take like just the bare minimum credit hours to be a full-time student. And then that necessitating you to take another semester, which for the colleges, which are businesses, right? Like 100% of colleges are also businesses, right? I was going to give some benefit of the doubt there, but no, really, it is an education for money business, right? They are.
Well, we also started to, I mean, this movie is also emblematic of this. We also deemed the life of student to be unworthy. Yeah. The fact that you were in school, you had to get out. You had to get out and get into the real world and get a quote unquote real job. You couldn't just stay in school. Again, this is something that was not the case in earlier eras of education, and is certainly not the case now. But there was this weird period where, like, throughout the 80s and 90s, where things started to become much more standardized and we expected everybody to go, that we also then in that realized, but we can't expect everybody to stay forever. So we need to figure out a way to get everybody out of here stat. So we put this arbitrary 4 years on it, which again, didn't exist before, hasn't existed since. It really is only in this like time span that we're talking about, where people thought about college as a 4-year thing. And then on top of that, as you said, they started to also limit per hours per credits. Now, part of that is definitely like so we can trick people into sticking around and get some money. I'm a cynic, and I believe that for sure. The other side of that, though, is also that education started to get more expensive, and people were expected to be working and going to school to pay for it. And the idea of having to be in class for 80 hours a week wasn't going to cut it. So a lot of that stuff also came from the idea that we want to keep as many people in college as possible from the same, it's all born from the same bad seed. We want money. We want more people in this place of business in order to be giving us cash. So we need to make this more accessible. And one of the ways that we can do that is we can promise that you'll only be in classes this time, and this time each week, which lets you go off, make as much cash as you can, and then keep feeding the machine. Right. So like there is definitely part of it where it's like we're going to try and keep you around as long as possible. But you have to remember that, again, in the past, college wasn't shaped by a 4-year rule. That is something very, very, very late 1900s and again, really perpetrated by the US, because if you look at over in Europe and like England and stuff, there are people that would go to university for years. You were a uni student and you like that was just a whole chapter of your life. And in America, we treated it that way, but we also limited it to like 4 years of somebody's life and then acted like that turned him into an adult. Like a lot of the stuff that this movie is going up against are definitely things that I applaud it for, like pointing out like the feudal nature of like education and this idea that they don't know what to do with themselves because college taught them how to do a thing but not how to like be humans, and like all of that fun stuff that it's talking about. And I connect with that because that is true across the board. The problem is that it's the people in this movie I just don't. Because as you're saying, like, as much as this movie wants to perpetrate them as like these slackers who don't know what to do with themselves after graduation, it's not that any of them are in position to like to have the world crumble around them once college leaves. It's not like they're gone for good, right? I think a much better version of this specific story is Van Wilder. Like, again, 10 years later with Ryan Reynolds in the 2000s. Where he is this guy that has been in college. We learn in that movie, I think 6 years. I think he's rolling into year 7. Yeah. Might even be 8.
It's 7 years because there are a bunch of people who've been in school for 7 years. That old joke from Tommy Boy, they sort of evolved it a little bit with the fact that he's like, I've only been in school for 7 years. There are other guys who do that. Yeah, they're called doctors, Van.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
that old
But then the big thing that we get
chestnut.
in that movie
Yeah.
is we get all of the moments with his father who comes to him and says, I'm going to pull the rug out from under you. If you don't get your shit together, you are not going to have me to fall back on for this. And like, it makes it a much more personal, much more higher stakes situation. You know, we kind of get some of that in this movie, but we never quite get it enough. I don't believe for one second any of these characters are in any real danger from the world. And because of that, there's no stakes to this movie, which makes it just to be entirely honest, a boring fucking movie.
Yeah. I'll agree that it's a little bit boring. I mean, one of the really crazy things, right, is you have French Stewart playing the character of Dennis, who has been in school for 6 years, and they say he's a professional student. He's got 3 degrees. When I think professional student, I think something like, well, I knew I was going to end up making this comparison eventually, but Eric Stoltz in Kicking and Screaming, he has been working on his final thesis for like 15 years. He has been in school for 15 years. Eric Stoltz, as I can't think of his character name, but he's like a bartender who like is sort of in the orbit of the 4 guys in that movie. One, Josh Hamilton from With Honors, which I didn't think there'd be 2 Kicking and Screamings, but I'm not the only one to compare this movie to Kicking and Screaming, which feels kind of nice. Like, that feels like a professional student. The fact that he's just been in school and completing degrees for 6 years does not feel completely out of the realm. But then it also hits me this weird way because the character's name is Dennis, which is my father's name, and he has told me on like those moments where he's got like the clarity about his life and things. He's like, you know, there was part of me that just wanted to be a professional student. I loved being in school so much, just the learning and the teaching of it all. And that's such a cool thing to think of. But then when my father says that to me, I'm like, wow, it's crazy how college has changed from when you were going in the 70s to when I was going in the 2000s.
Yeah, college is no longer, and by this point, college is no longer a place where people go and like grow up, spend some time, have some safety nets. Like, we want it to be that, and we still think about it that way, but more and more and more of that safety has been pulled away, and college is just another place for people to go and spend money. You know, like you said before, it's just turned into a big old business, and this movie never addresses that.
No.
Like, that's just not something that this movie cares to talk about.
No, it is what this movie does. So, okay. So we're celebrating this as part of Brendan Fraser History Month. Over on the Adam Sandler Cinematic Universe, which this is going to be important, and I swear, when there's a movie where there's just a little bit of Adam Sandler, like maybe a scene or 2, we call those grains of Sandler films. Glory Days is a breath of Fraser. Because he's there. He's in the scene that... What?
I would stand up and clap for you if it wouldn't heat the mic. That's, there you go. That was fantastic.
Oh, you need to understand that I was so nervous about not saying that correctly.
Well, this reminds me of when we watched Kids in the Hall last year, right? Brain Candy is like, it's this moment where Fraser shows up, not long, almost uncredited, right? Is he credited in this one?
He is not credited in Kids in the Hall. He is credited in this. The big reason that we're watching this is because Brendan Fraser has appeared uncredited in a bunch of movies. I could name 6 off the top of my head right now. Do you want to go for it? You've said one of them, so there's 5 more.
And to be clear, the reason that we sprinkle these in is because if we didn't, we'd end up with just one whole season of those, and that's no fun. So
yeah, it has to be. We can get by with 1 a month of celebrating Brendan Fraser, and even then, a lot of the times it's a real struggle to be like, can we do this? Does it feel like we're not honoring the man? But this is another film about academics. It weirdly feels like a companion piece to With Honors. In like so much, like those people were also seniors who were graduating, and they were stressing the fuck out about graduation and what happens if they don't graduate and where they'll go the next year. Where even in this movie, we're like, that's the inciting action, is 2 days before graduation, right? Dawn of the first day. Jack wakes up and he's like, what the fuck am I supposed to do once college is over? Yeah. And it's not like he doesn't have any plan. His main plan is go live with my brother for a bit. A brother that we never meet, but I have to imagine, based on Laws of American Pie, is still somehow Casey Affleck. Uh,
Yeah. Um, Yeah, I just like the thing that With Honors does that this one doesn't have is, I mean, the mere presence of Joe Pesci raises the stakes because
right.
we understand that like homelessness is a possibility. You know,
Yeah.
like this whole the ways in which we've seen the world like tear apart Pesci's character and With Honors gives stakes to everything that Fraser's character is doing. The idea that he is like struggling to get past college but then doesn't know what he's going to do with himself, it actually becomes an interesting conversation because he's like, it doesn't matter. What we learned with Pesci's characters, it doesn't matter how smart you are. It doesn't matter how much wisdom you have. At the end of the day, this world is still going to try and beat the shit out of you, right? Which is like, you know, we've done With Honors. Go back and listen to that one. It also is not something that's like a perfect film, but it definitely tackles a lot of these concepts a lot better than Glory Days does. Because I mean, first and foremost, Glory Days doesn't really address any of this stuff. It just wants to have another moment for Ben Affleck to just add the F word into the middle of other words.
I don't know. Like, in terms of the Ben Affleck performance in this, I'm really impressed by it. And we're going to really touch on that when we watch Dazed and Confused for our very special episode. That'll be coming out this Thursday, because there's something about how Ben Affleck plays an unlikable character. Like a character who's a bit of a fucking asshole, right? And I think that Jack would call himself an asshole without any difficulty. But then, like, usually that asshole Affleck is on the side somehow. To make him your main character in Glory Days, I mean, as an actor, right? If I'm Ben Affleck, I would leap at that opportunity. To be like, I'm going to be the asshole that I was in Dazed and Confused. I'm going to be the asshole that I was in School Ties. And I'm going to try to have the audience rooting for me, supporting me, trying to understand the why of this character. And, like, clearly he does it. What doesn't support him is the story around it, right? Like, I understand why he is who he is.
I also don't think Affleck does much in this movie. Like, at this point, when he's doing when he's doing this, we've already seen him do like so many other roles. I mean, you mentioned Dazed and Confused. We've done School Ties on this very show.
Yep.
Like, I mean, like he has acted his butt off in movies already, right? Like not many where he was like a leading role. You know, he does a lot of stuff like Baseball Fan #1, I think, is when he shows up for the Red Sox, right? In Field of Dreams. But like he does, you know, small stuff like that for sure, but he's also got things under his belt where he has, you know, juicy roles.
Yeah.
This just feels like such a cartoon character, and he's making such a fucking choice. And, you know, the next year is when we get him as Holden in Chasing Amy.
Yeah.
And, like, oh my God, such a much better performance of a guy that is trying to figure out his life and trying to figure out, like, where he's at and who he is. Like, you want to talk about, like, a slacker character, like Holden is this phenomenal, like, run for Affleck, I mean.
Yeah. I mean, it's to see his evolution as an actor and what he is able to accomplish in these roles. And, like, it gave me sort of a new respect for Affleck in this way. And I also understand, so this movie, like, weirdly, the weirdest fucking thing about this movie is its tagline. The tagline for Glory Days kind of makes me physically ill because it's Animal House for the 90s. You know who wrote that? I don't know how, but a fucking chatbot wrote Animal House for the 90s. No human being that watched this movie would think to compare it to Animal House.
Well, I think it's the idea that it is an ensemble college comedy that revolves around the this one setting, the ranch, what is it, El Rancho Scorcho, or whatever the fuck they call their house.
It's El Rancho is what it is, but I think it's El Rancho Grande. Everything
El Rancho Grande
just calls it El Rancho, but like there's a sign. Like we could know the name of it.
I think that is like the beginning and end of the Animal House connection, right? Is like once you say that, well, yeah, but there's a lot of comedies that fit into that category. You know, Revenge of the Nerds fits into that category too, if that's how you describe it. But other than that, it doesn't go any further with it, because the other big thing about Animal House that's to be remembered is it's fucking absurd. There is literally Looney Tunes sound effects in that movie, like when Belushi falls out of the window and stuff, right? Like there is a level of absurd comedy in Animal House that is just simply just not present in this movie.
There's also a level of
sold a very poor bill of goods on that tagline.
There's a level of being a slacker that is not on display in this movie. Like, there's the thing where they're stealing the test mimeographs so that they could cheat and know the answers beforehand. There's like just the way that Otter is the Tim Mathis character. Like these guys really are trying to do the bare minimum. And that's because we get a whole fucking year of them in school to actually explore what it means to be a slacker the way that it is. In 2 days, every one of them is graduating. The only one, like Mickey's not, but like we don't know why that's not happening. And then you have Slosh, who like failed out of school and is somehow the one with his life the most together. They give him shit about like working menial jobs and you got fired. And he's like, yeah, but I'll get another job. He is paying his rent. He is happy. He is not stressed out. And honestly, is he slacking? He's building video games in his spare time.
Well, none of them are. Even what you said before about them trying to like steal test results and stuff like that. That's not slacker comedy, right? Like that's irresponsible comedy. That's goofing around. That's bad boy comedy for sure. But like think about something like a couple years previous to this is Clerks, right? And we have talked frequently about how I hold that up as kind of the epitome of slacker comedy, because of the ways in which it is literally about Dante refusing to move. Everything in his life is pushing him in any other direction, but because he is such a slacker, he refuses to move. And we see through that film and through the subsequent sequels and stuff how that really is detrimental to his life. Like the ways in which he stands in his own way. There really isn't a moment where I feel like these guys are ever refusing to budge because of laziness, because of insecurity, like whatever causes it. Like it's like the problems of this film are not present because of their inability to be mature and move on. They just really aren't. Like a lot of shit happens to these guys that is, to be frank, just not fucking fair. And like it sucks because life does do that to you. But to try and lay the blame on them for the majority of the shit that happens in this movie is, I think, unfair. Like I really do. I mean, I think specifically the big one that I'm thinking about is the gay professor there, Luther, right?
John Rhys-Davies.
And like the inappropriate nature with which he treats these guys because of his attraction to one of them. Like that's not their fault. That's it's gross and it's shitty, and the way this movie handles it is not in any way like meaningful or helpful. But I also, at the end of the day, don't blame them for any issues in that story, because it's not their fault that this guy is gross.
Dude, if anything, the moment when they introduced the Corpus Christi poll, I'm just like, really? This kind of feels gross. And the way that he's so proud of it, and then like the ways that it has clearly been, like, I'm gonna say warped, and I hope that like, I don't mean that in like the as huge negative connotation, but the like Santa Cruz ification of that Corpus Christi poll with like the peace sign and like the surfing guy on the wave in sort of crude cuneiform. Like, he's like, everybody put their mark on that. And I'm like, that feels like a weird way to honor that culture, which was also like, that's an actual thing that was taken from Peru and then placed at this university. And then like you did, as classwork, had students basically vandalize it.
Yeah, deface it.
Yeah, like...
Yeah, I mean, like, and again, if this movie cared to actually talk about that and point that stuff out, then there'd be some meat on these bones.
Yeah.
But that is only there just to serve for them to have their break the boat moment, right? Because that's like, just to compare it again to Animal House, but it's the thing that they destroy that this professor loves, that he's just like, stands there just like unable to stop them when they saw it down later.
Yeah.
Like, that's the only reason that thing exists. It doesn't it's not there for them to make a commentary about like professors with shitty appropriative attitudes about other cultures and stuff like that. Like that's just never talked about.
Or like the academic, like, because we're honoring it, like because it's okay that we have it, right? It's it belongs in a museum argument of Indiana Jones that has been made like post the 90s of like, yeah, I guess it belongs in a museum, Dr. Jones, but like maybe it also just deserves with its indigenous people who it belongs to. Maybe you didn't need to take it.
Right. And again, these are interesting conversations that this movie
is not interested in having. But again, because I'm like looking at it, I'm like, this is so bananas. And like, what a great way to give some meat to this story that Rich Wilkes is just not interested in. Right? Yeah. Like, because it really would be something if he had injected any sort of meaning into this poll that, like, just by its very existence already has meaning. Like, in that moment when Ben Affleck takes a chainsaw to it and just saws it down and you have that timber moment, like, it felt cathartic to me. Because, like, not only are you doing a strike against this guy who just tried to take advantage of your friend, right? And has also been rude to you just because you are not blessed to be your friend, right? He doesn't have the same pseudo-sexual interest that he has in French Stewart that in you. Like, that's all cathartic, but it also feels fucking good because why the fuck do you get to do that and act that way about another culture? And like,
I don't think it's that second one though. Like, it's cool that you can read it that way, but like this movie, it does not.
Well, yeah,
that.
No, I mean,
and, like the weird thing about the stuff with the Jonathan Rhys-Davies is as much as for us who have not, we're not sitting in front of the movie right now talking about this, right? We're just kind of discussing like the meta of all of this. And so Rhys-Davies plays this professor that has inappropriate feelings towards a student of his, and it causes him to favor that student over another. That is the thing that is super gross about his story. This movie definitely leans into some like gay panic aspect of that story, right? Which kind of undercuts the fucking point of the fact that this is a professor taking advantage of students, which is really the thing that we should be focusing on. So again, this movie stumbles in to interesting moments, but it never tries to get there. So you say that it's really interesting and like it really was cathartic for you when this happened. I'll be honest, I forgot that they cut it down until we started having this conversation. It was so meaningless to me.
Well, yeah, it gets lost in a deluge of destruction because they end up destroying El Rancho,
house, right?
Like that's what it sort of segues into, is this fact that like none of this has meaning. Let's destroy it all.
See, destroying the house, now that meant something to me because that was a place that they all celebrated up until the moment where they're destroying it. And so that has some meaning to me for sure because this movie earns that. But yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's just a little bit disappointing. But then I said that the Adam Sandler Cinematic Universe, it would come back in this month. I know we've already sort of cross-promoted it, but like, go out there, listen to it. We talked about Airheads because it's Brendan Fraser, because of everything that we're doing over in season 5 of the Adam Sandler Cinematic Universe. But then the really crazy thing, and this is a connection I was unaware of when we put together the schedule for this year, right? Like, you'd swear, I don't need to admit that, but like, we really just stumble into this shit. The writer of Airheads is the writer and director of Glory Days.
Yeah.
And thematically, holy fuck, dude, does that guy have one message that he is trying to get out? And that message, for better or for ill, is that just because I'm a white guy in the 90s doesn't mean I don't have an opinion on things. Usually that you're like a young white person, right? Like, you don't have problems. You're young and white. Like, that's what Chaz is rebelling against.
The problem is he doesn't have different opinions on things. He has one opinion.
He has one singular opinion.
Angst.
Yes.
This makes me feel angst. And that is something that's really interesting, right? Is this idea that if you look at his movies as a whole, this idea of the white male angst that he's feeling at an era where in an era in this country where they are probably the least to be able to talk about that sort of stuff. And you know, there is something to be said about that in some regard. I don't want to throw too much of a bone here though, because it ignores the plight of everybody else that's also been suffering this way and have been suffering this way for years. Like, congratulations, you have found yourself in a room where there are people who are more well off than you that are not letting you get your feelings and opinions out. And it's like, yeah, like welcome to the fucking party. And I think that's really what the larger issue is with a lot of the movies that we look back in the 90s is it's not that what they're trying to say is not important or meaningful to the artists saying them. I think there's some that are, you know, we can talk about sellout films all we want. I don't think this is one of them. I will give it that
No.
credit. I do think that this is honestly coming from a feeling where this writer, where Wilkes is making this movie because this is something really truly within him that he feels. The problem is that there's no self-reflection on what that feeling means. He just knows he's feeling it. And both of these movies are guilty of this. Like Airheads is as well. Is that it's him getting his shit out, which is great, but then, you know, like what are you going to do with that? Like, congratulations, you've put your anger out into the world. Thanks.
Okay.
like there's no and the thing is that there's not enough people on board with this angst to carry that film any further. And you know, for some people that's all it is just a moment of just needing to get something out. So they paint a painting, they draw a picture, they make a movie, and that's it. They got it out, they move on. Wilkes never moves on, and at some point it just becomes hard to watch. It's like watching your friend, you know, that your high school friend as you've been growing up, and you have really truly, you know, moved on, dealt with some stuff, maybe not everything, still discovering stuff you need to deal with, blah blah blah, but you keep looking back at this friend who's just complaining about the same shit they have been for the last 20 years, and they're just not doing anything about it. In a lot of ways, like he it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. These slacker comedies that he's writing become this self-fulfilling prophecy of he's just this just angry, sort of not well off, but more well off than most white dude like in the 90s. So like you're not really on the docket right now for people we need to take care of. And that in and of itself can feel like oppression for sure, but it feels like oppression, but that doesn't mean that it is, right? Because there are people out there that are suffering right now much worse than that we really need to work on and really need to figure out. You know, and like and so there's this idea of because he is in this unique position, it's not really that unique as we said in the 90s. It seems to be pretty present in at least all the filmmakers of that time and television makers of that time, but he's in this position where he feels this way, recognizes or doesn't seem to recognize that he's not gonna be the one to get help right now. And like the fact that like there's no discussion of that, no exploration of that, his work never cares to look beyond itself. This is the definition of a filmmaker up their own ass. Yeah.
Yeah, it's yes. That bravo, because it is. I was so like, oh, like maybe he has something else to say about Airheads. Like now that he has this chance to do it, and I'm like, this is not only just the same shit that we saw in Airheads, it's also now sort of toothless because. Like, we've heard this message, and one of the best other parts of the message in Airheads, right, especially, like, in terms of the slacker nature of it, is that realization that if we want something to happen, we have to work to make it happen, right?
That's called character development.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that is how that film goes, right? This film, they're just like, man, I want something to happen. Yeah, I want something to happen too. You want to grab a beer? Yeah, bro, let's grab a beer. 5 minutes later.
We did love our slice of life movies in the 90s. You know, I already mentioned Clerks, but I'll also point to Richard Altman and stuff too, like Dazed and Confused, which we're going to do soon. Like,
that's Richard
Linklater. This idea of being like, we do like these kinds of capturing of moments in people's lives for prosperity. You know? And they do give us that sense of nostalgia sometimes and that sense of looking back. But this is not a slice of life that I need saved, nor is it a slice of life that I connect with in any way. So like, there's a lot of things working against this movie as even in that regard, right? Because you could forgive it for some of its like kind of lackadaisical nature and the ways in which it addresses like character arcs and development and stuff like that. If you're looking at it as a slice of life film, but like. Even that doesn't hold up because then you have to ask, okay, so this is just merely just a slice of cake. This is not watching the baker make it. That's fine. What kind of cake is it? And it's just like just angel food cake. There's nothing else. There's no frosting. There's no strawberries. There's nothing going on with it. It's just the densest, just whitest, fluffiest piece of cake we could give you. And it's just like, oh, thanks. I'm gonna chew on this for 2 hours and then I'm gonna go home unhappy. Like this movie really does nothing for me.
Yeah, and I think it comes down to, in 2003 we started having these Sunday movie nights at my place because I would get done with my shift at Blockbuster, and a couple of my friends who worked at the Dunkin' Donuts, they'd come pick me up, and we'd all hang out and we'd watch some movie. And the movie that kicked that off was Old School, right? None of us had seen it in theaters, so we rented it, we watched it. So then, like, we kind of tried to follow that vibe of film, right? And that's something that I think we're going to explore a little bit later this year, possibly in a time capsule, or maybe just in a regular episode like this. So we were renting a lot of, like, college comedies, right? Like Eurotrip is another one that really sticks out on my mind as one that we watched. And one that we ended up taking home was Glory Days, because I mean, I don't want to cannibalize what we're going to talk about in the Dazed and Confused episode, but like Dazed and Confused was one of those movies that was on Comedy Central all the time, and it was one that like 3 or 4 of us owned different copies of it, be it the DVD or the VHS. So it always like wound up being put on as background noise when we were hanging out.
Well, we hit like the 10-year anniversary of it when we were in high school or something, right? Like, isn't that one of the big things that kept it going in
that's why people had that DVD. The 15-year anniversary of it is the one that I really remember, because that's when they did like the big 15-year anniversary, and it had a special edition DVD.
Yeah, that might be the one that I'm thinking of. I just like that's how a lot of these movies really kind of caught on with a lot of our friend groups, is you would hit these anniversaries, 10, 15, 20-year anniversaries, and there would be some celebration, some special edition put out, you know, all marketing to get the next generation to buy it, and it worked like hook, line, and sinker. But that's the way that I know of Dazed and Confused as well. And again, we'll talk about that in the future episode.
So it was on all the time. So then we see Glory Days, the way that it's spelled. We see Ben Affleck, and we're like, let's check it out. Animal House for the 90s. Fucking sign us up. And we didn't end up finishing the movie because like you're selling yourself as something that you're just not. And then rewatching it again for this episode, because I had never gone back to it, but in some ways, I also connect to this character, right? I mean, I was the older person in that friend group, so I was about to graduate from high school, and it's like, I'm going to go to college, but it's like, what am I going to do in college? What is my actual interest? What do I want to be my career? So then, you know, I end up 4 years just kind of treading water in theater because it's something that I'm good at. Not necessarily something that I'm passionate about, but that I can put in a little bit less effort than everybody else around me and still look like a god king. And I don't, that sounds like I'm some sort of crazy egomaniac. And if you've listened to the show long enough, then you know that on some level that is also the truth. But I did watch these people in theater break their backs when I was in high school, and I was like breaking a nail against that. And
it's the idea that it's the slacker concept of, it's not that there's not work to be done. It's just that this work comes so naturally that it's not really work by the definition of the word work, right? And like that is something that we're seeing in this movie for sure. So I can understand why you'd connect with it.
Yeah. So then, and I didn't know what to do. And the beautiful, that other moment that really works in this movie, and I didn't see it until today, is I kind of love like Jack's final art piece for his degree in art, the like golden hand holding up a piece of media with like some esteem. And like the talk is like, it has nothing to say, right? I'm not really interested in the culture of suburbia. And his response is like, but that's my culture. That's what I want to put into my art, is like, yes, it's suburbia. And to some people that means everything, but God, like we, as millennials, right? You and you specifically have said that you would love to be adopted as like a Gen Xer, right? Because you feel like you lived that lifestyle, right?
Sure, yeah. I mean, the thing about like millennials is they're slowly just becoming this lost generation. Like Gen Xers basically told us like, hey, like, you know, everything will get taken care of by the older generation. And then by the time we were the older generation, they were like, fuck it, we'll just wait for the Gen Zers. And it was like, oh, okay. So like we kind of just don't have anything to do, right? And so like because of that, a lot of the culture and stuff like that we adopt are these things that are like too old for us, too young for us. There's constantly these conversations of like, do millennials belong at Disney World without kids? And it's just like, fuck you, this is all I've got. I'm not gonna have a kid right now because who would want to bring one into this world? But for the love of God, let me enjoy something in my life. But at the same time, also, like, millennials trying to get involved in shit, and they're just like, well, millennials are coming into the workspace now. They're going to start making all these new rules. And it's just like, we're not welcome anywhere, which I feel every generation hits this point where they feel that way. It's just that for millennials, I don't know the way out, because again, we've fast forwarded to the point where everybody's talking about Gen Zers now. Nobody's talking about millennials anymore. So it's just like, okay, guess we're just kind of just sitting here on the side.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't get it. But knowing what I know about Gen X, and granted that's a lot from culture and the fact that they were this latchkey generation, they would kind of do it. The scene that speaks to me like crazy in this movie is when Ben Affleck's mom calls and she's like, yeah, we're coming to graduation. And he like does not want them there because where have you been the rest of my life? Like, I viewed this as something for me, and now it has to weirdly be about you. And then his father makes it about him. Yeah.
The only good scene in this movie is when he goes to dinner with his mom and dad, and it is only made good by Spalding Gray. And I will even say on top of that, it is only made good because of the meal that Spalding Gray is served.
I mean, is that for the table? Or is Spalding Gray going to eat that whole fucking pig? Because I'm like, oh, okay.
He pulls out that fork and that knife, and he goes to town on that platter like it is all for him.
The fork is most definitely a carving fork.
Oh, it's definitely a carving fork. It's not even a real fork. Yeah. 100%.
But his knife is not a carving knife. It's just like a steak knife.
Here's the thing that really baked my noodle. Here's the thing that truly fucked with me. Did he get it to go?
I don't know. I honestly don't, because everybody
that has not seen the movie, and at this point, I don't know if we could encourage you to see it or not. Like, but if you have not seen the movie, what happens in the scene is, Ben Affleck goes out with his parents. Spalding Gray plays his dad, and orders something that comes to the table. It looks like it's like a duck dinner, like it's a full bird.
It's a pig. It's a full pig. It's a pork dinner,
surrounded by vegetables and greenery and shit. And then Ben Affleck goes to the bathroom like, would say a minute after it's served at the table, right? Like food is put on the table. Ben Affleck gets pissy about the conversation, excuses himself, goes to the bathroom to go kind of
have a Ben Affleck moment with himself in the mirror. That is my favorite part about this movie. The only reason that I would tell people to watch this movie is because I am a huge fan of the Ben Affleck moment. I love when Ben Affleck gets to tell this huge speech to another character, and that character, who should say something, right, instead stands there in silence and just lets him talk and talk and talk.
I know. There's better scenes of that in Chasing Amy, not 2 years later.
Oh yeah,
later, whatever it is.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
There's better Ben Affleck moments of that.
There are definitely better Ben Affleck moments, but this is the rare Ben Affleck moment that it is Ben Affleck doing a Ben Affleck moment to himself.
To no one.
To nobody. And it's just like, is this why you think that people like, are you just doing it to yourself every other time? That watching that in this movie is going to make me reassess every single other Ben Affleck moment that I have ever watched.
Yeah. Well, so he has this moment. He comes back to the table to find that his mom and his dad have literally just packed up and just left him there. And so he runs outside and almost gets run over by his dad in the car and says is like, what's going on? Why are you leaving? And they're basically just like, sorry, fuck off. I think his dad says something like, he's a man of the world. He'll figure his own shit out.
Yep. That's it.
Like, goodbye. Call you later. But I need to know, did they pack up the duck dinner?
It's a pig. It's a pig. It's a pig's head in the center.
Is it a
pig? It's a full pig.
It's something ridiculous. This is a ridiculous platter of food is just put only in front of Spalding Gray.
Only in front of Spalding Gray. It is placed in front of him as if good luck, sir. If you finish it all in an hour, then the entire table's meal is free.
Yeah.
Like it is weird.
It's a wild moment.
I'm so glad that we both focused on just how insane that is.
I wish the rest of the movie did that kind of shit, right? Because we talk about how this is the same guy that did Airheads, and we love Airheads, right?
Yeah.
I think what it is for me is there is this absurdity in the level of Airheads in like they, take over a radio station with fake guns filled with pepper spray. That is absurd. That is ridiculous. There's no hook like that in this movie. There is no crazy, bizarre, absurd hook. And so like when a moment like this happens, it's like that kind of idea bubbling to the surface. Like he wanted to go sillier, and I think maybe didn't Wilkes. I mean, like
yeah,
I feel like he wanted to make this a goofier movie, and that he decided not to. And I don't know why, because it would have made it stand out from all of these other movies that we've mentioned. Like it really would have. I mentioned Van Wilder, we've mentioned Clerks, we've mentioned Dazed and Confused. Like there is this whole kind of like era of filmmaking going on about white angst, but wrapped up in this slacker concept. And like, yeah, it's not something that's moving the dial in many ways for a lot of people. But this movie is guilty of that more than most. Like, as much as that genre of film is such an era of its time and not one that we enjoy much anymore, you know, look at what happened to the downward slope of the Hangover movies, right? Like we just, that's not our bag much anymore. There really needs to be more meat on their bones for us to do the white angst slacker story again. You know, sometimes it's a sports drama, sometimes it's, you know, like, but there needs to be something else there. This movie just is so absent of anything more than that it just kind of like it slips through your fingers like sand. There's just nothing, there's no substance here to hold on to.
Yeah, it is. There's nothing that connects you to it. That's the weirdest thing about it. Like, if the ranch was going to be destroyed, right? Like, it's been purchased. Like, it starts with the landlord being there. Like, look, I sold the house. You guys have to be out by the end of the month. Right? Like, there's an inciting action, and for some of them, that's not a problem. That's not a problem for Mickey and Slash, who have already decided, well, we were going to get an apartment anyway because we can't afford it once you three have graduated. For Dennis, he is going to Michigan for business school. Like, he has that plan. For Sam Rockwell, he has it, and even though Ben Affleck already has this plan, it's like, no, man, like, I'm losing everything now, right? Like, I thought even if I'm leaving, the ranch would still be there as this living monument to us, right? Have that as your opening scene, and then suddenly all of the other things that happen in this movie mean something. Yeah. Right? Especially the destruction of the house. Like, they're going to destroy this house anyway. Why shouldn't we be the ones to, like, destroy our memories and preserve them through our own self-destruction of it?
Yeah, I think more than anything, the movie that this really made me want to go back and watch again was SLC Punk. Like, like part of that's the soundtrack. The entire soundtrack is the Vandals and shit like that. Well, like,
it's the Vandals and NoFX. The cool thing, the Vandals not only write a bunch of music for this, they're also like the sound designers. So any of the other punk is chosen by members of the Vandals.
Nice.
Which is awesome. Super cool.
Yeah, no, it's a great soundtrack. That honestly, I think I know the soundtrack for this movie before I know this movie, and better than I know this movie.
Yeah.
Like, I think the soundtrack is one that still pops up on like my Spotify playlists and shit like that.
Yeah. And why wouldn't it? It's excellent. I love the mise en scène. Sorry, I took a film class once. In Jack's room, the like 4 different Punk and Drublick posters that he has up all over his room is awesome. Like, I listened to a NoFX CD once, and I decided that was my identity. It's just so apparent for that character.
Again, I think this movie drops the ball in not really exploring any of this, though, because I think what you just said is clearly important. This idea is that I don't think Jack is a true punk, right? He's just playing at it as his character in this world because he doesn't have anything else to hold on to. And because this movie does not want to dig into any of that kind of headier shit, we just kind of get this idea that he's just this whiny rich white dude that has decided that punk is going to be his identity, and we hate him because of that, because there's nothing more to it, right? At least even in Airheads, we got that moment, just to point out how much this movie really is just that all over again, but we get that moment with Fraser as the what's his name in Airheads, as
Chester Ogilvy or Chaz.
Right. Yeah. But we get this moment with Chaz, we get this moment with Chester where we learn about his past, but he earns his place in rock history because he talks about how much the music speaks to him, means to him, and really helps like shape him. And so in a weird way, I know Wilkes understands that should be there. The fact that we don't get that with Ben Affleck, the fact that he doesn't have like some huge monologue about punk and about why, despite his upbringing, punk truly still speaks to him. Like he doesn't ask for that as a character. Jack doesn't ever ask for that, which on the one hand is like cool and all, but also then it just makes him feel like a fucking poser the entire movie.
Yeah. I mean, he's posing with the best of them, though. He will triple
I like
down
what you
when
said.
he should
Like, you
double
listened
down.
to
Yeah.
NoFX once, and that just kind of became your identity because it hit you at just that right time in your life. And that could totally be something that happens with a character like Jack, but it just shows such a lack of self-awareness that he is sitting in this like fancy ass restaurant with his mom and dad who are clearly spending hundreds of dollars on this meal. You don't get a pig like that for one person and not spend at least $100 and something on that particular plate, right?
Yeah.
And like this whole thing is happening around him, and there's never a moment where he looks and reflects on himself and what does that mean for him. Meanwhile, that is the entirety of SLC Punk, with Matthew Lillard's character looking at his family and looking at his life and like consistently defending his right to that music and to that lifestyle because of the oppression that he feels in as a Mormon in Salt Lake City. Like it lends itself to this whole like alt scene, right? Like I don't think that Jack needs to do much to earn this alt identity. Nobody does. You know, the world oppresses us and we fight against it. That's what we do as humans, right? It's just that some of us don't always recognize that the thing that we're fighting against is literally our own families, our own upbringing, our own background. And it's that acknowledgement of that that makes it okay for people to talk about this stuff. If you don't acknowledge it, then you just seem like an asshole. And like, I don't know, maybe that's not a fair thing, but that is the way that it works. Like, you don't get to just dive into this world, this alt scene, and be all up in it while also buying the best hair products to put your hair up in that fake like pompadour that he's got the entire time. Well, it's not quite a mohawk, it's not quite a pompadour, so I don't know what to call it. Right?
A faux hawk.
But then
Isn't
he's also got all these
it?
shirts that he owns and all of these different like band clothes and stuff, which is cool and all, but somehow he's affording all of this while also still going to college and not doing anything.
Yeah. He's not working. Everybody looks at Slosh as like, it's so weird that you work these jobs. And it's like, yeah, but that's what real people have to do, right? We don't all get to just do it. And then the way that he describes it, that scene where he's like, no, but I'm happy, man. And I did it by watching you. You're unapologetically yourself all the time. And that's what I wanted to be. I didn't want to be the precious little college computer science major. I wanted to live for me, and I'm getting to do that. And it's weird how he becomes like this idolic figure to the other four kids that he almost kills in the beginning of the movie. It's something. To speak on the breath of Fraser that's in the movie, he plays Doug in the role that I am certain landed Leah Remini her position on King of Queens, because the way she says
than anybody else's for sure.
Oh yeah, but the way that she says Doug is the way that she's going to say Doug to Kevin James for 5 seasons on King of Queens.
We should point out as we're recording this that we do sit here on the day after, 2 days after, a whole bunch of shit came out about more shit came out about the Church of Scientology. Did you hear about any of this?
No, I haven't.
Well, so she's been saying for years that she felt that she was a target in straight up a possible assassination plot from Scientology. It's been one of the more contentious claims that she has made about the church, right? Well, 2 days ago, in a wholly unrelated case, some PI working for the Scientology, there's a whole bunch of weird stuff. This guy basically was going through a divorce with his wife in Scientology, hires this PI. PI ends up actually not only like admitting to this woman that he's like, hey, I'm spying on you for your husband because you're going to get a divorce, but also let's sleep together. And they do. Like, the whole bunch of weird shit happens in this case, right? Tied up in all of that, text messages that got deposed on this guy's phone straight up talk about how he is working with a team watching Leah Remini. Is that how you say her last name?
Leah Remini, yes.
And that killing her is definitely on the table, essentially. Like, not in so many words, but it is pretty much just like, yep, we could probably just take her out if we need to. What? So all of this shit where she's been, she has caught a lot of slack from Scientology because she's said some very inflammatory things. And this was always kind of one of those things that they held up as one of the most ridiculous things that she could claim. And now we literally just this week got evidence that it was true. So here we are. Is like this is where we are recording this moment about her in this scene, is like, just for anybody, keeping track of where she's at in the world, like, holy shit.
Yeah, that's insane. That's insanity to me. Holy crap. I don't know. But she's really good in the scene. Brendan Fraser is there just doing the Brendan Fraser thing, probably because of his connection to Rich Wilkes from Airheads. But it's really weird because of all of his little cameos, This is 2 minutes of screen time for Brendan Fraser. He says maybe 15 words during the entire thing.
He's got another phenomenal line. One of the few memorable lines from this movie. You're lucky I don't know karate.
You're
man.
lucky I don't know karate, man. Oh, yeah, it's glorious. It is. It works. It really does work in a lot of ways what he's doing there. But then he is credited in this film, which is insane because there are movies that we have not talked about yet, but that we will explore in future Ben and Fraser History Months, where he's like a character. He's in like substantial plot significant moments in the film, and he doesn't get credited. So, like, what is the difference? Why is he credited in this?
Well, some of the crazier things is, like, he's given a straight-up name, Doug. She's given the name Teresa. Meanwhile, we talked a bunch about Spalding Gray, and, like, he has this whole moment with him where he, like, does this whole come to Jesus stuff with him and blah, blah, blah. He's only credited as Jack's dad. He's never given anything more than that.
Right.
So, like, that's the other thing that's crazy in this movie is that, like, you have people in this movie. Matthew McConaughey is on screen with more lines than anything we get from Brendan Fraser, and I'm pretty sure he's just car rental guy.
Truck rental guy. Because that's what they refer to him as. You don't want to wind up like truck rental guy.
Yeah, right. There's crazier moments in this movie with people that get really weird. I mean, Matt Damon gets an entire moment in this film, right? We haven't even talked about this. Matt Damon is in this movie, but I'm pretty sure he doesn't have a line, right?
No, he's just standing there like Matt Damon.
Yeah, but he gets an entire first and last name.
Well, he gets a first name and a derogatory nickname. Come on, you really think like Pud Puller is not his last name?
We don't know what his last name could be, but anyway, he's given more character like on the page than other people in this movie, and he doesn't even have lines.
Yeah, who's the guitar player in the band? The one that they piss on? He just shows up. Does he have a name?
I couldn't friggin' tell you because if he has a name, but everything would attest that he probably does, I couldn't tell you what his name is.
Yeah, like
that's not Slater, right? That's not Chris Slater, right?
No, it isn't. I don't think it is. He's unrecognizable. I didn't know who he was.
Yeah,
and then I didn't care enough to look it up. I didn't even know how to look it up.
Right?
Like, was he a guy who gets pissed on? Oh, you almost got me. No, they got you, man. They pissed on your face, friend.
We were real down with P in the early 90s, I gotta say. Isn't this when we get the Fred Savage one where he beats up the bully with the P squirt gun?
Yeah, that does happen earlier. Jesus.
It ain't water. What's in it then? It's piss.
Jeez. It's man. Alyssa Milano is in this movie for like 3 scenes, but they sell it on Affleck, Milano, Stewart. Like,
yeah, the ways in which she kind of gets like tossed around between the two, like a prize ain't great, and then on top of that, like I don't know. Yeah, there's this. I all I could think of was Moira Kelly in With Honors and thinking about how great she was, and we talked about that. Like we talked about how awesome it was to have a female character present in this friend group that was more than just this prize for them all to fight over. And then we went and watched this movie and we saw exactly that, and it was like, ugh, gross.
Right. Well, I mean, I will say, like, Ben Affleck kisses her, and then he stops, and he's just like, no, this isn't right. Like, I can't do this. I can't do this to my friend who I know likes you and who you like. I'm not going to do this. Like, the fact that he doesn't end up sleeping with her, that showed a level of restraint for a 90s movie that, like, even The Big Bang Theory didn't go that hard. Remember the end of the 4th season when Raj and frickin' Penny slept together? And then they did a huge backpedal to the fact of, like, well, we slept together, but we didn't sleep together. Like...
Yeah, I mean, but to me, that scene only simply reads as she is this prop between the two of them, and the fact that he's not going to take advantage of this prop makes him the better man, right? Which is like,
oh yeah, no,
great,
it doesn't,
but it still doesn't give her any agency as a person to be like, well, maybe I don't just because I like him and just because he likes me doesn't mean that I don't also want this. And as a human being, I am entitled to get things I want as long as everybody's consenting and okay, right? Like
no development.
That is actually a thing that is also just cool in the world. Like it's great that we get to have this white knight moment with him, but it's exactly that. Just a hollow white knight moment.
It is his save the cat moment. It is
Which,
literally
and the
meant
cat
to
in this
say,
case is, I will remind everybody, Alyssa Milano.
yeah. But that's the reason. Like, that's the reason why you don't just completely write off Jack. And I'm a little upset that, like, I'm giving it a little bit of praise there, but also in a 90s movie, it would have happened anyway, right? And then, like, because that was, we were so free about sex in the 90s, too. We were scared of sex because AIDS, right? Like, we just saw that sex is scary, but also, we kind of want to be free about it again, man. Like in the 70s.
Yeah,
It's
well,
weird. It's
and,
wacky, wild
it's
stuff.
all about
yeah.
the idea of informed, consenting adults, like the
Yeah.
idea that they are all friends that know one another. This is not just strangers somewhere and stuff, and blah blah blah. I don't know, man. It's the thing though that like you look at stuff like this, and people will say like, "See, not every '90s movie was that bad. You have movies like this where this happens," and it's like that's not an excuse for the 10 other times it did, though, right? It's the same thing with like when people talk about female protagonists in action movies, and everybody's just like, "Well, we had Ripley," and it's just like that's great, guys. You named one. Can we can we get like an afternoon's worth of marathoning female action movies before we call shit even, right?
Yeah, no, I'll agree. All right. So then the other reason that we did Glory Days, right, and this is the big grand poobah of it, is the fact that this movie, prior to today, one of the trivia bits on IMDb is the fact that there are 4 Oscar-winning actors in this movie. Ben Affleck, Matt Damon, Matthew McConaughey. I can't remember the 4th one.
Oh, don't. Yeah, man.
Sam Rockwell. Sam Rockwell. First of all, Sam Rockwell's in this movie. This is the first time that we've said his name because his character is the most generic.
Wait, did you really
90s
not mean
character.
Brendan Fraser when you were saying that?
No, I didn't, because in the IMDb, right? I'm doing the Lord's work, Sejan, because on the IMDb trivia phase today, it said this film cast includes 4 Oscar winners: Matthew McConaughey, Sam Rockwell, Matt Damon, and Ben Affleck. So then I went in and I went to my contributor page and I changed it to 5 and added Brendan Fraser because it hadn't happened yet, which on one hand totally shows how known this film is, right? Is that it did not get updated. The trivia of this movie, the 4 bits of trivia of this movie did not see an update until we were covering it for the show 2 months after the fact that a 5th Academy Award winning actor like becomes a part of this film.
Yeah, I mean, just because we mentioned it earlier, we should talk about the idea that also in Midsummer Night's Dream later on, which is another Kenneth Branagh one, is we get Sam Rockwell back.
Yeah.
Just to kind of bring that all around.
Yeah, to reference the downfall of my college identity. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, like it now says it. Like this movie, for all of the issues that we have pointed at about this film, like it didn't kill the careers of any of these people, and people who show up in this movie go on to then win Academy Awards. So it's really just an interesting thing about like Hollywood and how it works. Right?
I mean, I think we're looking at a truly middling film. It's not so bad that it offends people that they never want to see anybody in it again, but also at the same time, it's not good enough that anybody cares to talk about it. When they talk about Sam Rockwell, the movie they bring out is not Glory Days, right?
Well, why would they?
Talk about
honestly,
like Cowboys and Aliens than I have Glory Days.
Seriously, I'm talking about Sam Rockwell in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles before I'm talking about him in Glory Days. He is the most generic character for a 90s movie ever. Like it is, like we get it, like this is just the character that you need. He could be removed from this movie and you would notice no difference to this film.
Yeah, the movie would just be this movie.
Yeah, it is, and that's sad because he's Sam fucking Rockwell. Sorry, I'm just sharing some thoughts and some anger and some all around the bill. Yeah, no, it wasn't Brendan Fraser.
He once told Howard Stern that he was like second behind Robert Downey for Iron Man, which is why he got the Justin Hammer role in Iron Man 2.
Yes.
Can you imagine a world in which Rockwell is our Iron Man?
There'd be a lot more dancing in that iron suit, I can tell you that much.
Wasn't enough as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. I love Sam Rockwell. I love a lot of the people who are in this. And then the other like weird thing, like the other weird connection between Airheads and this is that Mickey is the D&D rocker from Chester's whole speech about like, I picked my nose. I had a bug collection, like all that stuff. The first person to speak up is the actor who plays Mickey, who has only ever done 2 movies, Airheads for that role, and then in this, Vinny DeRamis plays Mickey, and he's great. I love his vibe. I love like his how he presents himself on the stage. His like emotion. He has such an emotionful face. I don't know, emotive. He has an emotive face, and yeah, he was in 2 movies, as far as I can see. No, he showed up in a short film in 2018 that I'm looking at right now. But yeah, like, so like D&D Rocker, I'm like, this guy looks so familiar. And I'm like, oh yeah, it's because he was in Airheads, that movie that we watched 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. I think as far as the Fraser of it all, just to kind of wrap it up on talking about the reason that we're all here, like, I think this is just once again one of those moments where we see that I just think that he just likes working. And it's clear that people like working with him because he gets asked back to do these kinds of things. You know, we worked for so long together on Airheads, you know, didn't you tell me that movie famously took like 3 months to film with that nonsense?
Yeah.
Like, the fact that after all of that time, the creative behind that movie can say, "Hey, do you want to show up for a day on set for this?" Like, and he's like there for it. That speaks volumes because that's not always the case in these situations, you know.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons why we celebrate Brendan Fraser, right? Is because of this fact that he seems to be this kind guy in Hollywood, and he really formed these like lasting connections to the fact that he is going to show up to offer a breath of fresh air in a film. So it's that. But I will say this, right, as we wind this one down, just look up the scene on YouTube. Sejan found it, shared it. I'll throw it up on like some of our social media stuff so you can just watch the Brendan Fraser scene from Glory Days, because honestly is one of the best moments in it, not just for the Brendan Fraser of it all, but just in terms of something actually happening.
I would say, here's the thing I was going to say about that scene. Out of context or in context, I think I feel this way, but out of context for sure. Leia Remini and Brendan Fraser they come off as the sane ones in the scene. They come off as the reasonable people in the scene. Like the ways in which Jack like reacts to them having not even like, yes, it's a loud conversation and they're in public, but they're not screaming at each other. They're having a conversation with each other on the bus. And like, I don't love that shit either when I can hear other people having loud conversations, but but Jack's reaction, you know, Ben Affleck's reaction to that moment and like the ways in which he's just like, can you two just shut up? And then he looks for support from everybody else on the bus, and nobody else on the bus.
The guy behind him is the best part because he's already reading a book, and he somehow reading intensifies would be the subtitle underneath him. Like he somehow starts reading harder, and I'm like, yeah.
So like, it's this weird moment in this movie where Jack like speaks up to these people and says something, and all it does is just really make him just look like an even bigger ass than we've already felt about him in the movie so far. That's why I'm saying, even out of context though, like you get that feeling, like you're just like, man, this guy's a dick, and like the movie that's what the movie tells us too. So just anybody that's watching that scene and hasn't seen the whole movie, you're getting pretty much everything out of that scene that we did.
Yeah, I mean the context, just if you're not going to watch the movie, is the fact that he's jealous of what they have. He wishes he could be the guy ruining someone else's bus ride by having a too loud conversation with his girlfriend.
Right.
Like that's what he wants. He's realizing that he wants it. And Sam Rockwell, all he's doing is complaining about having it. Mickey is too afraid to embrace it. And so like it just comes to this boiling point. Because he's not able to find any sort of port that will tell him. Because French Stewart is just like, you should be single and unattached. And Slosh, like, he doesn't really value his opinion until that moment when he decides to.
Yeah.
So it's but yeah, he is definitely the aggressor in that situation, regardless. And even like knowing the why behind his actions, that doesn't like clear him from what he's done.
Well, and then he does this, and I'm putting air quotes around this as hard as I possibly can. He also then has this like cool guy move of exiting the bus out a window. What the fuck is that? What is even what?
Dude, the weirder part about him exiting the bus through the window is that I am convinced it would take Rich Wilkes himself would need to contact me and tell me that that is not the intention of the scene. but he fully Batman prepares for that to be his exit from the scenario. Because before he speaks up to yell at Teresa and Doug, he opens the window. Like his plan,
everything that happens later in that moment.
Yeah, it is so, I am going to create a scene here, and here is my out. Like, because he's just angry and he just wants to rebel against anything. And then he is gifted this ability to rebel against living avatars of a happy relationship. And it's just, I'm just like, kind of cool. But then, like, he goes to go out the window and I'm like, man, I wish that the window had been closed beforehand so it looked like natural and not like this was my plan all along. Yeah, and then he runs on train tracks, which is, have you ever walked onto train tracks, Sejin? This is a question I've been asking people after re-seeing that scene.
So the only part, this is like, it's an artsy, like, even in my head, my life is like fucking sepia tone in these moments. But for anybody from the area, the stretch of Rhode Island, and I think it goes up into Mass and a little into Connecticut too, there is a old railroad track that they've converted into what they call simply the bike path. That's just what they call it. They call it the bike path. It is the remnants of an old railway line through the state of Rhode Island that was just not used, and someone in their infinite wisdom decided, well, let's pave over it and do up all of the grass nice around it, and we'll make it just a nice walking path through the state. But there are sections of it that have not been done over, so there are moments of it that go back to train track. But in that regard, like, there's not actually trains coming down it anymore. They don't use it. So, like, especially because half of it is paved over. So, like, I have walked down stretches of train track or run down stretches of train track before because of the mere nature that I grew up around the bike path. But, like, even when I think about those moments, I literally think about them like fucking like album covers for CDs. I don't remember them like as like definitive moments of my childhood. It feels almost something like out of time because, like, it's this weird feeling of, this is a thing that I think I saw in Stand By Me. Essentially, it was like the only thought I would ever have in my head.
Yeah. I mean, I once went camping with some guys and I ended up I got called into work. So we had canoed out to the spot where we were camping. And it's like, well, I don't want you guys to canoe up. I can hike up and there are the train tracks and I can follow the train tracks back to where our cars are parked, where we launched the canoe from. It's like about half a mile, maybe a mile and a half. But like, it was an active train track. And I'm just like, that's not what train tracks look like. They're not as wooden as what he's running on.
No, it felt more like what I'm talking about, like these old out of service ones that must have been. Yeah. No, it's an overly forced artsy moment because as much as I can talk about like a couple of moments of my life, I can think of train tracks existing around me while I walked, right? Like this moment feels like it is something that, much like the window exit, it just feels like it's something that he's doing because it's a cool thing to do. It's just so forced. And that is, I think, one of the biggest sins of this movie. It goes back to what I was talking about with the whole punk aspect to it, is everything revolving around the punk scene, the music, the style of his clothing, and what he chooses to do when he's like angry. I'm gonna just like cry as I run down these train tracks. All of it feels like it's coming from this super disingenuous place of, I don't know why I'm doing this other than it would be really cool if it would look really cool if someone did this.
Saw me doing it, yeah. And it would be cool if someone saw me doing it. I'd be super cool. I don't know. Anything else to say on Glory Days, Sejum?
No. I mean, like, good to get it under the belt just so that we can say that we're being completionist with Fraser. But I'm excited to get to a more meaningful film next time. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I think that it's going to be a meteor film, the next one that we cover. But it also weirdly fits into like everything we've looked at in terms of academia. We went from, the whatever the one was called, because it's not real, and that really kind of messed with me. The one from Hairbrained to Harvard to University of California, Santa Cruz. Like,
well, and I think the bigger thing is that we've explored the idea that all of these academia-based films are not about academia, but rather about this idea of like a stunted place in one's life. And I think that's going to be the key moving forward.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see. We'll see what it was. There was no mention of Moby Dick in this one. I was a little disappointed in that. But hey, what are you going to do? You do
Affleck's
what you
can.
can.
A bit of a Moby Dick himself.
Affleck's probably seen Moby's dick up close living in Santa Cruz.
There it is.
Here we all
So,
are
the
going
construct-
to the south side.
The construction of that joke is just all over the place, and I love it.
All right. So I guess just because we're talking about Ben Affleck, brief. Air, A Story of Greatness is now available on Prime Video. I watched it, recommend it. I would be surprised if we didn't talk about it in some greater length in a later episode. So just something to consider. The Super Mario Brothers movie did come out on digital. So if you've been waiting for that, it is out there. It is available. I'm still holding off though, because for the same price to buy it digitally, I can get like 4K digital Blu-ray and like, I'll wait. I don't need to see it that badly.
I've already purchased and watched it multiple times. So
you son of a bitch. I'm excited for that one. That one's out there too. And Dungeons and Dragons. This is one that's crazy because people were asking me when can I see Dungeons and Dragons and how. It's on Paramount Plus. It came to Paramount Plus super quickly. And then just talking about streaming platforms, specifically the one that Wells Fargo advised Paramount to shut down because it is a money sink. True Lies is on Peacock till the end of the month.
True Lies the TV show or True Lies the movie?
True Lies the movie. The movie that I was searching for. It went up at the beginning of this month. It is gone at the end of the month. I have finally watched it. I don't want to make a promise without Sejan like agreeing beforehand, but we're going to do a True Lies episode in 2024.
Yeah,
right?
We can definitely talk about it. Like we've touched on it in the past in our bullshitting around James Cameron and about how he kind of didn't take some of the criticisms of that film to very well. But we'll talk about it more when we'll
get there. But now that I've seen that,
it's a good meaty 90s. Like it has like a weird what's the satirization to it that I think kind of gets lost in kind of the shuffle of the conversation of what that movie's about and stuff. And I think it's worth breaking that movie down a little bit more.
So that's something. After watching it, my first thought was I'm giving this 10 stars on IMDb. And I can say mission accomplished. But then it was, I'd really like to dig into this film. But also, now that I've watched the movie, I feel like I can watch the show, despite it already having been canceled. Because I'm curious how you take that balls-to-the-wall action film and make it a 13-episode, like, weekly drama.
And again, like, trying to give Cameron as much credit as I can here, because I know I famously in the past have really shit all over the guy, but I do think that a lot of what he's doing in that movie is making fun of, 90s action, and in a lot of ways making fun of himself, just because he was kind of the godfather of that sort of creativity back in the early 90s. But so is that captured in the TV show? I doubt it, because like we don't really have that frame of reference to make fun of anymore, but we'll see. I don't know. So
that'll be something to go into. But if you're somebody who, like me, was searching for True Lies, it's on Peacock till the end of the month. So you could take the 2 hours to like not celebrate Brendan Fraser and watch the film. Now that I'm giving you permission, but like I already did it. So it's out there, it's available. So anything else, Sejan, that you want to talk about before we send it over to ourselves?
If we didn't talk about that, we are sitting here in the week of Tears of the Kingdom being out.
Oh yeah, we haven't talked about.
Part of the reason that we front loaded this month with us doing some stuff with Will so that we could do shorter records later is because I'm now going to go back and dive back into that for the next 10 hours of my life.
Yeah. Tears of the Kingdom is probably going to be a big talking point the first episode of June. So you have that to look forward to, is what I'm going to say. You have a lot of things that have happened in May that are going to be discussed in that first one in June. But until that time, let's throw it to our last episode where we have Will as a guest to finish up the Brendan Fraser quiz of Brendan Fraser #2. Who will be the Grand Poobah? We have decided there can be but one winner, and it is about to be decided right now. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Say Report. I'm your host, Devin Decker, and welcome to the cream in your Daze sandwich, the Brendan Fraser quiz of Brendan Fraser. It is part 2 of our episode where we have just covered Glory Days. I'm your host, Evan Decker. Joining me is host companion Sejan Sarwick.
Isn't sandwich cream like a thing in the UK? Isn't that their mayonnaise?
But it's called salad cream.
Salad cream, that's what it is. Thank you.
And the cream in your sandwich did throw me.
Yeah, I tried to throw him a life jacket, man. I don't know what you want me to tell.
Well, I'm talking. Well, first of all, that the other voice you heard, the decidedly not say report every episode voice, is our Quizmaster General Will Fournier. Will, thank you so much for joining us to do these quizzes.
It's good to be here. Thanks. Thanks for having me.
All right, so we just did Glory Days. That's the Brendan Fraser movie we decided to focus on for this week's episode. And then, as the follow-up to that, and for celebration of its 30-year anniversary, our very special episode is going to be Dazed and Confused. So those are the two chocolate cookies of the Hydrox. So this quiz and discussion of an episode of Scrubs acts as the sandwich cream. You get it? It's not crazy.
Oh, we're in biscuit sandwich world, not sandwich world.
No, I kind of get where he's going now. It's just, unfortunately, I think Ben Affleck would prefer that Matt Damon be the cream in his sandwich, but...
Well, Matt Damon's only in one of these movies.
But Ben Affleck's in both of them. Was I wrong about that, right?
No, you're correct.
Yeah, okay.
So is Matthew McConaughey. And wait, is Brendan Fraser not? I thought he played Pink Floyd. I thought he was the main guy.
I'll give you a secret, Dev. I have not already watched the movie yet for us to record, so probably maybe don't put me on the spot.
Oh, it's Jeremy London. It was a joke about the fact that
it was the other one.
It's not even Brendan Fraser.
No, I know it's not Brendan Fraser. I was hoping to be Jeremy London because of that old rumor that he's the third London triplet. Hollywood's
it's
weird.
A callback to, I think, the first.
The very first.
Very first. Yeah, I think the very first. Yeah.
But we're having a good time. So we're here. All of us are drinking beers because that's what this is a hard episode of Scrubs that we're going to discuss before we do the quiz.
I thought you meant of this recording it. I thought
no.
it was because I'm kicking your ass.
No. I mean, I got to be honest. I'm glad I have the champagne of beers to ease my pain. I love the Miller High Life, which...
Kevin, okay. I love you, and I was going to say, you're not drinking Stella, right? Okay.
No, I'm drinking Miller High Life. I'm still Devin Decker. But yeah, no, it's this is a difficult episode, but it also is nice to celebrate this there's a party atmosphere here at the Say Report this week with Glory Days and Dazed and Confused. So yeah, here we are. Talking about
just jump in the beer conversation and sorry to cut you off there, Devin, but we're about to launch a beer. And when I say about to, this is kind of a weird out of time episode, so it may have happened, it may not have happened yet. Called Glory Haze.
Oh.
So, it all ties in.
It's coming out in May for Brendan Fraser History Month.
Yeah, we're doing it purely for Brendan History and also a local sports team in my country.
What sport is it?
Send us some information.
Yeah, I'd love to hear more about it. We'll post it up. We'll talk about it in the episode proper. So that's cool, right?
Yeah, things are happening. It all comes together.
Wibbly wobbly, timey wimey. Who the frick knows? We're talking about, I don't know. You guys can say I'm wrong here. The saddest episode featuring Brendan Fraser on Scrubs.
Oh man.
Not the saddest Scrubs.
You put a weird caveat at the very end of that I wasn't expecting you to say. Yes, it is definitely the saddest episode containing Brendan Fraser of Scrubs. Yes.
Oh, I mean, my argument for saddest episode of Scrubs is season 1, episode 6, My Old Lady, which, to go back to the West Wing, that's Mrs. Lanningham.
I know, but man, yes, we're talking about a very. So I said last episode that like Scrubs is no stranger to the saccharine, right? Like it is definitely willing to dive into some of the soapier material of the doctor drama, right? Like and not that Scrubs is drama, like it is pure comedy, but the fact that it is totally willing to pluck those heartstrings is part of the charm of the show, right? And not every show can get away with that, right? Like, not every show can get away with the hard swings of doing this kind of stuff, and then do an entire episode where your guest star has been dead the whole time.
Well, not the
You
whole time, but like
Spoilers
most
for The
of
Sixth
it.
Sense, everybody.
Well, yeah, so I guess the first thing we should say is spoilers for what goes on in this episode, because there is a bit of a twist.
Yeah.
So if like that is like a big thing for you, then like you know, go watch and then come back. But like we kind of know where this story is going from the last couple of episodes, and it is a few years later. So bringing Brendan Fraser back is kind of, we know what Scrubs is up to at this point, right? To kind of talk, to also build on some of the stuff we said last time about the idea of Scrubs kind of finding its feet in those earlier episodes. We are now squarely in like mid-season 3, I think, with this episode.
Yeah, this is season 3, episode 14, My Screw Up. Anything we've said here right now, you could still go enjoy the episode, but we are going to dive deep into it, beginning at this point. So
I have a request.
Yes.
I want to talk about Tara Reid for a few minutes because we did not get to talk about her in American Pie last month because she's not in that one.
This is what she was doing instead. Apparently,
Yeah, she was too busy.
Yeah, but we noted the absence of her character. We felt that it was missing something. Not just her, like there's other characters in that. Go listen to that episode. That's a good episode. This one might be. Let's find out. But Tara Reid, like in this episode, for just a few moments after she had a pretty solid arc on this show, JD dates her and all of this stuff. It's the unfortunate way that they always bring women into Scrubs, is that JD has to sleep with them first. Like, I don't know what that's about, but that idea being that, like, I think I've said this before in past American Pie episodes, but now that we get to talk about her again, I'm gonna take the opportunity. Like, I love Tara Reid. I love the work that she puts in. I love her style, her steez, whatever you want to fucking call it nowadays, kiddos. But like that whole thing that she brings when she shows up, it is not. It's the Keanu Reeves effect, and I'll use Keanu Reeves because Matthew Perry says it's okay to poke fun at Matthew Reeves. To Keanu Reeves.
And Matthew Perry. Thank you, Matthew Perry, for the permission.
But no, like it's the Keanu Reeves thing of like, Keanu Reeves has a slice, and it's not a very big slice of the pie, but he has a slice of the pie where he fucking shines. And when he is in that slice of the pie, it is just a blast to watch. There are times where he has stepped out of that slice of the pie that not everybody's had fun with. I'll point to Much Ado About Nothing. I don't think anybody's offended if I say that his performance in Kenneth Branagh's early 1990s Much Ado About Nothing is not enjoyed by all. Let me put it that way.
I blame that on Much Ado About Nothing script, though. That's just not a good Shakespearean play.
I fucking love that play. I hesitate to truly say this, but the Joss Whedon version of that story is one of the best Shakespeare put to film versions of Shakespeare I've seen in a while. But we're not talking about Much Ado About Nothing. Specifically, we're talking about Tara Reid. And the character of Danny that she plays on Scrubs is so in her wheelhouse, and she is so good as this. Like, she's quick. I mean, she's Jordan's little sister. Like, she's got bite. She's funny. She's also just fucking, like, she's a force to be reckoned with when she has those moments with JD of forcing JD to really kind of grow the fuck up. And it's one of the first times that he's in one of those kinds of relationships that forces that, because even his relationship with Jordan, because that's right, everybody, he sleeps with both of them. Again, I don't know why, but I don't know why this is how it has to be the story of women on Scrubs, but yeah.
Does that make him wiener cousins with himself?
100%. He's his own Eskimo brother.
Oh,
I don't
yeah,
think
Eskimo bros.
But
Wiener Cousins is the one from Scrubs, right? Scrubs fans on the show today.
Yes, we're just bringing the league into things because
I prefer the
league.
But yeah, like, even his relationship with Jordan, he doesn't really change from that, right? Like, his realization of like who Jordan is and what that means in the grander scheme of things, he definitely understands that he needs to keep his dick in his pants. Like, that seems to be the most growth he gets from the Jordan story. The stuff he discovers with Danny is like, he needs to start being a fucking, like, adult, right? And so I just wanted to take this moment because we don't really see her a lot in this episode, so I don't know if there's too much more to say, but the fact that she gets to be there for this, I was so happy that they acknowledge, like, this. They could have very easily just written off like this is too hard for her or something, and that we'd never see her again. But no, she shows up, even if it's just for a couple of moments in this episode, and I appreciate and love it.
Yeah,
she's the one who calls JD on his bullshit of always wanting what he can't have.
Yeah.
And she's the one who calls, and like, that's such a huge thing for him because it's everything that kind of rolls through, and it takes him a long time to get out of that. issue. I also feel that the women introduced on Scrubs that JD is sleeping with, I think it's because Zach Braff may have been sleeping with them in real life.
But not even. Yeah, I don't even want to. I hope that they have higher standards.
I mean, but to be fair, he was dating Mandy Moore for quite a while.
Look, as a guy that loves and adores Zach Braff, you don't have to know that you are. They don't need our reassurance. They know they know how good they are.
Yeah, sure they are.
Yeah, they've all risen above Zach Braff, is what I would say, as someone who has almost nothing but disdain for the actor and the man that
he's single again. He's single now, so if you wanted to try season,
now's the time.
Look, I saw Cheaper by the Dozen. I saw Cheaper by the Dozen on Disney Plus, and it really made me understand that I'm a racist. So I really, really, really appreciate him.
Wow, taking that one off the list.
Yeah, have you guys not watched that one yet? Oh my
God. No, Zach Braff was in it, so I'm like, you know what? I can steer my car the other way.
You need to watch it. No, all right. Here's the thing. As somebody that I will stand upon the woke hill and scream out to the masses. I will buy into any fucking trend Gen Z tells me is the right way to go. And if I go too far, I hope they stop me, and I will go in the other direction. I want to do the right thing, and in that I am like water. I will bend myself to shape any teapot you pour me into. That being said, that movie, it might be the most like liberal woke like basically it was Disney being like, oh, you think these are the kinds of movies we make? Well then fine, we'll fucking make one. It's essential.
This is a remake of the Steve Martin movie, right? That's itself a remake of a movie from the 30s.
I was going to say, it is actually closer to the one from the 30s than it is the Steve Martin one, which in and of itself is actually based on a series of books from the 1920s and 30s. But it is closer to the 1930s movie in some of the story beats that happen. The Steve Martin one, and then eventually, I think Eugene Levy ends up playing the other.
Yeah.
Parent in the sequel, right? Like what goes on in those movies is a good fucking time and like really good Disney live action fun. But they do not lean into the politics that this one leans into.
Cool. That's all I got for that.
Yeah. But that's what Zach Braff is up to nowadays. We haven't really talked about it, right? We've talked a lot about like the Scrubs like podcast and what they've been doing in terms of Scrubs nature. But like Zach Braff is just out there just like apparently just making some crazy ass woke cinema. And like I applaud him for it. Just be ready for it when you put that movie on. That's all I'm saying.
Seems fair. I mean, for me, I stopped.
Ron Funches shows up. That's all I'll say.
Okay. I stopped following Zach Braff when Alex Inc. was canceled. I didn't have it in me anymore. Because that's a fun callback to other episodes of the show. For Tara Reid, I will say I'm a big fan of Ben pointing out the fact that JD slept with both of his sisters. Because in my notes, I'm like, are we going to talk about this? Or is that just going to be like, no one needs to remember that? And then that's all Ben does all episode. And also, the cutaway about I got rid of the video that we made, that is just perfect Tara Reid acting.
Yeah,
like,
can
we go in and have sex?
Oh,
no.
Yeah. Can we just go home and have sex?
Yeah. No. Why? Like she is on fire in that. It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. But here's the thing I'm gonna say. I watched this episode for the first time last year because Will had requested it as his birthday present for being a part of Brendan Fraser History Month. I had never seen my Screw Up before. What I will say is...
Happy birthday to Will.
Well, he's the one who suggested it. But what I will say...
It was a valid present.
It was a valid present to yourself from the world. But watching this episode of Scrubs years later, I realized I made the right decision when I walked away from Scrubs the first time that I did. When I was not real happy with how things went after the stellar season 1 finale, and then I didn't like the first episode of season 2, and it never grabbed me again. And the direction that Scrubs went in after the first season, while it is still very decidedly Scrubs and everything that you guys have been celebrating, I can see the writing on the wall with this episode as to like what makes a Scrubs episode. And I'm fairly certain I would have gotten annoyed if I had stayed with the show, even more so than I am now.
Yeah.
If that makes any sort of sense.
Look, man, like at the end of the day, the show couldn't hold on to you and couldn't get you back. And like, I'm not surprised to hear that an episode 2 seasons later didn't work for you. Yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, especially because the only other like season 3 stuff I had seen, because I'm a huge fan of Tom Cavanaugh, were the episodes that he was in where he was JD's older brother. And like, is pretty much insert the guest star of the week into this storyline in the ways that things go with that character based on my own memory, right? Because that's going back to when I was at Hollywood Video and someone was like, yeah, those are the episodes that Tom Cavanaugh is in. So I rented them and watched them. If I'm remembering...
I will say that it sounds like you've really set yourself up for that kind of bias when you just keep watching the episodes that famous people would show up in.
I mean, famous people that I have an affinity for. There's that. But I guess the thing that I will say, and then you guys...
episodes with guest stars, and it seems like they get a lot of guest stars.
It's not the guest stars. It's what happens in the episodes. The beats and that. But there's neither here nor here. There. Let me get this out, and then I'll let you guys geek out over this episode.
Would you rather they get Brendan Fraser to show back up and nothing happened?
Oh, no, because that's what upset me the first time. No, well, I mean, there's something interesting about what does happen with Brendan Fraser, but we'll save that for a little bit deeper into it. You talk about this is balls out comedy, like Scrubs is a comedy, and what I've realized watching these 3 episodes again so far removed from it is that for me, as somebody who's watching the show, that's a huge disservice to it. Along the same lines of the fact that like it's all JD's perspective, and maybe I'm wrong, and if I am wrong, you guys are going to tell me right now, but the fact that like Dr. Cox has a for real mental breakdown in this episode.
I mean, I will point out to you that you said everything is from JD's perspective, and then pointed specifically how this episode is actually not.
Well, that's a really good point. But I mean,
no, it's actually a huge deal that actually, as much as we talked about how this show is about being from JD's perspective, this entire episode
can't be just by the very nature of what happens.
It cannot be from his perspective by the very nature of the breakdown that Cox has in this episode and us witnessing it.
Right. So is that breakdown ever addressed post this episode? Is what I have to ask you guys.
Yeah, because you get the next.
Go ahead.
The next episode is when Jordan's friends don't leave.
Yeah.
So if you continue the series, Jordan has friends who come into town for the funeral and stay around, and they are still there a week or 2 weeks later and still hanging around. And it comes back to the fact that Cox wasn't there for Jordan because he was so wrapped up in himself.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Because of this breakdown, and because, while he had lost his best friend, he forgets that his ex-wife loses a brother. And it becomes this little bit of moment between them where he does have to then address the fact with himself that he did do what he did, and he turned himself off, and he ignored everyone around him, including people who were probably hurting more than him, or at least as much as he was hurting.
Yeah. All right, cool.
Yeah, I just to your question though, specifically about the ways in which what we see in this episode is a severe mental break. Spoilers for right?
We can talk about it.
We've
already.
We're in.
So when we learn that Ben is the one that actually has passed away, has been dead the whole time, and that the character of Ben that we've been watching has actually been a manifestation of Cox's own imagination,
and grief,
here's the thing, Grey's Anatomy was also doing the Denny ghost line around this exact same time, and I'm all over the fucking place with ghosts and hospital shows. But anyway, this entire episode, it is revealed that, well, not the entire episode, as said earlier, there's a moment in this episode where suddenly Ben is no longer the Ben that we know, and we realize what has happened is that Ben passed away and Cox can't deal with it, so he's been manifesting this version of Ben who he's been hanging out with the whole time. And so you have this beautiful moment towards the end when he has to accept it and all of that. But the depth of the illusion is creepy. And then add to that, we are given all these other factors about how he's been at the hospital for over 60 hours. He has not bathed in that time. There are like comments made about that. Like there's a lot of other stuff that we are kind of hinted at that is so like beyond the pale of like what happened. Like I applaud it on one hand for the ways in which it is really showing like a man losing another man in his life, and like the ways in which that truly affects him, and like it is beautiful in that sense. But also at the same time, everything that we know about this world and this character and all of this guy's been running around for 3 fucking days talking to nobody, talking to a wall. Why has nobody said something about this by now, right? Like, and so it's a weird balance between the kind of filmmaking and the kind of storytelling that Scrubs wants to do versus the world that they want us to believe that they live in, and I cannot believe that those two things jive as well as they do in this episode. The fact that he gets away with wandering around for 3 days talking to nobody is kind of absurd, even on a level too absurd for Scrubs, which is a thing.
Well, yeah, I think it comes to a point when you see Ben interacting with other characters, but them not interacting with him, which happens at a few key moments throughout the kind of the show. And you see Cox either laughing or commenting on it. And no one says, what are you talking about? No one mentions why are you laughing at nothing?
Yeah,
and that's
Elliot
because whilst they
turns
might
and
know
then...
he's been awake for 60 hours and has been, paying homeless people to be his alarm, they still...
The closest I think we get is Elliot, right? Like when he's talking to Sarah Chalk in that moment and she turns around, and on a rewatch, you realize she's clearly looking at no one and she's trying to figure out what he's laughing at. But in the moment, you'd be forgiven for feeling like she looks at like the way that they play that moment is supposed to be kind of squishy, in that regard. And that's like maybe the closest you get to somebody kind of asking him if he's okay. But I just cannot believe that would be the only moment in 3 days, in 60 hours. We're giving a timeline.
Yeah.
He's been there for 60 hours on his feet doing work, which is not... Like, we have also been led to believe by Scrubs, and I'm sure this is true actually in real life in the medical world, but I will stick to the fiction for right now. We have understood that people have had these kinds of shifts before. There have been episodes literally about being stuck at the hospital for 3 to 4 days at a time, things like that. So it's not like it's beyond a reasonable doubt that he would put himself in this position in that regard. It's the idea that in those episodes where we've kind of encountered this idea of you've been here too long, you need a break, you've been working, blah, 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 that's been driven into us so many times by this point. Why the fuck has somebody not sat him down, right? Even Kelso to this point, as his boss.
I mean, not only that, the fact that this exact storyline happens again in season 5. Like, when I came back to the show and I'm like, oh, this is interesting, the way that Cox is like, I'm super doc and I'm always going to be here and I have to work all these shifts. And then it's like, this weird because you did that. And like, it's really, I mean,
I will point out in that regard, one of the important things that they make sure that we know in that moment is, as much as he is not doing the right thing as a doctor, as a human, blah, 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 he has been able to keep everybody literally he has succeeded in his mission to keep everybody alive. Like, he looks at JD and goes, I've been here this whole time and I haven't lost a single person. Like, you get that moment, which, unlike what we see later in season 5, he starts making mistakes because he's been like so there is like narratively some differences in that regard. But I mean, no, as you're saying, as I said, like, we have watched many times Scrubs deal with the idea of burnout. Doctors and burning out, like, that is one of their biggest wells that they draw from. And the honest truth is because that's a real fucking problem in the world, right? So it's easy to keep going back to that well because it's still a fucking issue, right? And so, like, going back to that time and time again can feel a little weird, but also they do change the details up enough that, like, it doesn't feel like they're just retelling the Brendan Fraser episodes.
Yeah, you're right there. I guess the psychology of it is brilliant. The fact that the last time he left the hospital is when Ben died, and now if I'm always at the hospital, no one will ever die again. His way to, like, assert his control over a situation he's not in control of is some really cool stuff. And I think that a show today would maybe explore the mental health aspect of it. But this show made it the time where, like, we're not going to talk about mental health. Like, it's all played as a joke and then kind of just shuffled past. Yeah. Like, that moment where JD says to him, "Where do you think we are?" Like, that's the moment where you realize it if you haven't seen it before, or like the first time, or at least when it's confirmed, and there's no deeper explanation about what that means.
Yeah, he doesn't.
Yeah, he doesn't question what have you been imagining for the last. Because he says, whereas crying babies and people taking photos of my kids with cake and things, it's like there's no. JD doesn't then go, like, what the fuck, mate? Are you okay? You think you're at a kid's birthday party? We clearly have just walked into a graveyard.
Right.
And you're asking, where are the screaming children and whatever else? And it's that kind of... And they do... I mean, like I said, burnout does become a part of it. They did it in the beginning of season 1 with Sean Hayes as Nick.
Yeah.
Right. And he doesn't make it and burns out. And then they do come back to this thing, I mean, a bit later on in a slightly different aspect of it with Aziz Ansari, where he fires him for not trying hard enough and not caring enough because he's too relaxed. And you go, there's got to be this kind of fine balance of you need to care, but you need to not burn out. And that obviously is true for any doctor or in any profession, I guess. It comes around to that at some point, and there's got to be these people that do snap. But the fact that, I mean, JD says it as we talked about in the later ones with Jill Tracy, and when he uses the organs to save people or thinks he saves people. And the JD says he's impressed with the fact that he still takes it this hard. After 15 or 20 years of being a doctor, you still react this badly when you lose a patient.
Yeah.
And that, I think, kind of shows that, yes, although Cox only burns out or only has these kind of episodes because he cares too much.
Right.
Which we talked about before, with you need to have that ability to break away. And I guess with this, it was those moments when it does get too personal. And there are those patients. I mean, same as like there's the Brooklyn Nine-Nine episode where Jake promises that woman he will find the killer.
Right.
And he ends up in that apartment for 4 days, talking to walls. Because as soon as you actually give in and care too much, the stakes get way higher and you have to do whatever you can do. So whether that's being in the hospital for 3 days and not sleeping, or whether it's absolutely flipping out and disappearing for 2 weeks because you can't face to be in there.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we really need to give credit to Scrubs truly for is like we need medical shows. We need medical shows to be on TV because the unfortunate case is that there's a subsect of humans in this world, and specifically Americans in this country, that don't give a shit about a thing unless they can watch like a 20-minute comedy or a 60-minute drama about that thing, right? Like, and I think that noticeably some of the issues that have gone up over the last 5 years, as far as our quote unquote trusted doctors, like we also don't have a good solid doctor show right now. Yeah, Grey's Anatomy is still on, but it's on like season 19, so like you're not there's not a huge group of people in this country watching that on the reg, right?
It's my father. That's just, I'm going to admit it. But in addition to the fact that Grey's Anatomy is there, they are constantly rising the bar. So if you're doing a medical show, you have to have that zhuzh, where like New Amsterdam, it's like, oh, the guy has cancer himself working as an oncologist.
Yeah, no, the hook has to be more and more ridiculous, like every time. But we need a show like Scrubs to come back. I'm not saying I want Scrubs specifically to come back. I think it very much did what it needed to do in the 2000s. But like, I want to know what the next like doctor show is that everybody's talking about, right? Like, and then to that regard, suddenly everybody starts giving a shit about doctors again, and we start having some other conversations about things, right? I mean, it's in much the same way that God fucking love Abbott Elementary. I have not heard so many people talk about the state of education in this country without the start like, hey, I was watching this last episode of Abbott Elementary and it got me thinking. I've heard more people talk about education in this country in the last couple of years, like in my day-to-day life. The internet's not the same as day-to-day life. We all know that. The internet's been talking about the teacher crisis in this country for forever. But the fact that like I've heard people like walking into my office at work talking about it has been solely because of their watching of Abbott.
You know what it is?
Yeah, I think, like you said, the medical drama needing to have that hook. Whereas, you had House, who was a Sherlock Holmes style genius, but also a dick, and then you had
And a drug addict.
and a drug addict and whatever else. Yeah, and then you've got the good doctor who he's amazing, but he's got autism. So let's see how he deals with things. And it needs to be more than just a doctor. Whereas, I mean, to go back to ER again, they did it where there wasn't that kind of thing. It was just about the doctors who worked there.
Yeah.
And they managed to make it last and be real world where, you know, they talk about people, you know, of course you hook up with somebody you work with if you spend 80 hours a week in the same building as them or whatever it may be. These people are you probably see them more than your family.
Right.
And you end up having to deal with it. And that, like, I mean, the night shift, which obviously Devin, I know, is one of your favorites, and I've watched it a number of times as we go through it, is so much about the people that you're around. Yeah, sure, they have that. You kind of gives you the storyline by having new patients come in, but that has to weave in with the rest of life. It can't just be about, oh, look, new case, move on. There is this ability without needing some kind of hook that brings the people in because, oh, this doctor's a bit weird.
Right.
They can just be an actual human who is also a medical professional.
Yeah, I mean, Canada was nailing it for a while there, but then the issue is America is doing a lot less importing of Canadian shows. And then the one that I would point to, the one that was just showing the people who are in the trenches so you can understand the job, was Nurses. And that was a summer show that NBC had picked up during 2020. And it was really good in terms of, like, these are just normal people doing their shifts. And they touched on so many aspects of the healthcare system, like palliative care and all of these other things that you don't really think about. But then Nurses had an episode that one person on the internet decided was anti-Semitic, and NBC immediately canceled their purchase of the second season. And then because it had the controversy in America, Canada, despite it having good ratings, also shut it down. Like, it was disappointing what happened to that show.
Yeah, I mean, without watching that show, I can't really speak to how deep that goes, but, like, I mean, that shit's you gotta keep that shit on lock nowadays.
Yeah.
I will point out there is one medical show out there that I do enjoy, but I do think it gets because of the very nature of it, it's much more focused on the personal than it is on the actual medical nature of it. But Doogie Kamealoha is amazing. If you guys have not been watching,
I have not watched it yet.
It is a fucking blast. It is a fucking blast on Disney Plus.
But also, not to be that guy, she's not just a doctor, she's a kid doctor, right? Because it's like Doogie Howser.
Right. Yeah,
so, I mean, there's still that aspect there.
No, there is still the hook to it, for sure. It's just that in terms of, like, what is the big doctor show that people are watching right now, I don't think there is one. But if I were to like, wish one into existence that people could, like, focus on, man, that show, and again, Doogie Kamealoha, MD, is just check that shit out.
I mean, Chicago Med is pretty much basic, but because it's in the Chicago universe,
it's in that Chicago universe.
Those two shows are like in an arms race to who can be more fucking absurd with the stuff that happens, and then freaking poor Oliver Platt needs to clean up after.
Right, and there's this weird feeling that if you're not watching both, like, you're missing something, which I'm sure is not true, but they want you to feel that, right? Like, it's that FOMO, like, marketing that we've talked about with so many other things, is they want you to feel like you need to be watching both in order to get the whole story. And in that regard, fuck no, I'm not going to dedicate myself to two shows just to enjoy one. What?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, all those ones where it's like, oh, it's a crossover episode, and if you didn't watch season 3 of this show and season 5 of that show, you don't get the end of this story. Yeah. Hawaii Five-0 and Magnum PI started doing it, and he was like, or NCIS Hawaii, whatever it was that crossed over, and I was like, oh look, here's 4 characters that I don't know because I'm not watching a different show.
You're right.
And now I'm confused, but they all seem to be friends, and that's cool, but we're never going to see them ever again.
Right.
In argument, just for point of reference, it is NCIS Los Angeles and Hawaii Five-0. NCIS Hawaii has only crossed over with other NCISs, and Magnum kept the same medical examiner from Hawaii Five-0 after the show was canceled. So that's all.
There's
that
definitely
was
a Hawaii Five-0.
They've never.
And Magnum PI. I definitely have seen one where I had to go and find an episode of Magnum to watch.
I don't know about that. Is there one? I don't remember it, if that's the case. Magnum has become its own show in so many ways, even to the fact that the ME is gone, and they used to have like the big guy who like has a bunch of businesses in Hawaii 5-0.
Yeah, Kamakona.
Yeah, I didn't want to risk it. He was competing with Rick's Bar in Magnum PI, and now he's completely gone too. Now, nature of that is the fact that now they're on NBC, but they had also pared those away by like the 4th season.
There is a 2020 crossover 2-episode event between the two on CBS.
I did not know that.
Mm-hmm.
Thank
Season
you for looking that
10,
up.
episode 12 of Hawaii 5-0, and season 2, episode 12 of Magnum PI. That's part 1 and 2.
Wow.
I'm not even gonna try and say the Hawaiian title for that episode. What the fuck?
Yeah, no.
I am so ignorant to that shit. Oh man.
Oh, Magnum's
They haven't
so
even
good
got a
though, Will. I'm
translation
sorry I
like
didn't
you
get
do.
you bringing you into it. Sorry, yeah.
They had also wanted to include MacGyver in the crossover, but eventually decided to just do Hawaiian 5-0 and Magnum PI. I'm just reading shit off of Wikipedia.
Well, they were all the Friday series at the time, so it checks.
I can't keep talking about crossovers right now. We're in the week of the release of RWBY versus the Justice League, and that movie is so foreign to me. I feel like an old man aging as I even mention it. So we need to.
Is it RWBY or do you just? I thought it was just Ruby. You just called it Ruby.
Yeah, you're asking me as I openly just admitted that I'm so far beyond it that I age as I hear about it.
Gotcha.
I don't know if you heard the joke I made.
I just wanted to make you older, because if you're older, maybe it'll give me an edge in the quiz.
Is it? Why would it be Ruby? That's not.
That's
how
the
you
character's
say those
name.
letters.
I know, but I think people call it Ruby because it's like two U's. It's double U's. Ruby.
It's Ruby.
Okay.
I don't know. I've had conversations with people who talk about that show with me, and again, I feel the same way. We're like, wow, my bones are turning to dust right now. So I don't know that, and the screenshots I've seen of that. This is for an episode proper after Brendan Fraser History Month.
Yeah, the little bit of Ruby, I guess is that what we're calling it? The little bit of that show that I have watched, that's not a character name. It's called RWBY because the one character starts with an R, one character starts with, like there isn't a one person called Ruby from what I know.
Well, maybe, R is Ruby. She's Red Riding Hood, and I'm pretty sure her name is Ruby.
One of them starts with an R, one of them starts with a W, one of them starts with a B, and one of them starts with a Y. That much I know.
Okay.
So that's where the name of the show comes from, is from the starts of their names. It is also possible that there is a character named Ruby. It's just that I don't know, like, if that is the case. It's such a fucking weird. Anyway,
I have never heard it referred to as RWBY, and it was so weird. Let's get back to Scrubs. Yeah, I know, it's just weird. Let's get back to Scrubs. There's some weird incest humor that I did not pick up until the second time I watched this episode.
Right.
I thought, because it's Brendan Fraser, so I thought that he's being like just all like kind of cute and cheeky with the fact like, you slept with both of my sisters. That's something we have in common, because I'm sure as kids, like they shared a bed at some point, right? I took it so innocent, and then like the kissing thing, like on the cheek, like you'd still know who's a softer kisser and who's a bit of a biter. Like, and then watch it the second.
Yeah, no,
Ben's just fucking weird.
No, yeah, and then the second time watching, I'm like, oh man, that's a lot of incest humor, huh? Ooh, okay, missed that the first time through.
Yeah, he.
Oh yeah, no, it's definitely there. This is just me. Yeah. This is a Devin Decker admission of like innocence blindness.
I think it's that like it as a one-off throwaway joke, it would have been like, oh, that's funny. That now we have something in common. To then call back to it quite a bit later in the episode is like, it's not just like he was like, oh, that's funny, move on. It doesn't get mentioned again. He chose to come back to it and be like, hey, let's be weirder and dial down on this.
He even turns to Cox at some point and goes, was that too weird? Like, he openly asks, was that too weird of a joke? And it's like, yes.
Nah.
All right, but let's be honest for a second here, right? The three of us, let's say one of us had a mentee, right? Let's just make it me in this. I have a mentee a la JD, right? And you see how I'm treating that person. Are you guys going to be like, yeah, Devin's not really that. This is just an act he's putting on? Or are you going to try to out Devin the Devin that I'm putting on display for that mentee? Be honest.
Depends on the day.
Yeah.
Yeah. How many coffees have I had?
Good answers. Good answers all around. It on some level, it seems like Perry likes to fuck with this kid. I want to fuck with this kid because it'll strengthen my friendship with Perry. Because you also have to think about the fact that they're best friends, but they don't see each other all the time, right? Like, it's, I don't know.
Yeah, but I also think that part of that is also what JD brings out in people, right?
Yeah.
Like JD is frequently finds
He's got a
himself as the one that
punchable
gets,
face.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's an apt way to kind of describe his character, right? Is he naturally kind of is annoying, but the people in the world that are willing to look past that and see that he is actually a lovable person, there's a wide range of those characters, and the show is all about that, right? You have everybody from Cox all the way to Turk, right? Where like fucking Turk just adores him, right? Like there's a range of ways in which people interact with the annoying kid on this show, and it just so happens that the annoying kid is the main character.
I think they call that guy love. Sorry.
Between two guys.
Thank you. Yes, I don't know. I mean, it's a good episode. This is a very well constructed episode, but the kind of let's not talk about the deeper mental health issues that are on display here has made it age poorly. Despite the fact that it is the highest rated episode on IMDb. Like,
but you say it ages poorly, but I think more to your point, like, they wouldn't make an episode talking about mental health now either. Like, I think
that, well, I would certainly hope that there might be more of it. There'd at least be the thing at the end of it. If you or your friend are dealing with grief, call this number.
I don't have that much faith nowadays, but you're a better man than me.
I watch a lot of CBS. That might be the difference between us. I don't know. It's there's some good stuff in there. The Turk Carla storyline, but I love the callback to we introduced Ted's a cappella group the second Brendan Fraser episode. Let's make them a story plot point in this episode. I dig that a lot.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, them coming back around again, it's those things that I think dropped into the Scrubs world because they found out about something that somebody does outside of the show. Wouldn't that be cool if we could fit it in? And it's because, they used to rehearse in Sam Lloyd's dressing room and they all heard he could sing and they're like, oh, that's fun. Why don't you do that in the show? And it gets written in, and it's not one of those kind of ones where it was a one-off thing. They were like, this can become a running and quite easy little joke that everyone's going to look back on and be like, oh, that's nice.
Right.
It's so nice.
The only other note that I had on the episode that I wanted to point out is that supposedly buried somewhere in this is the John Ritter nod, because he had just passed away, right?
Oof, I did not know that.
He plays JD's dad in it.
Yep.
Yeah, it was father.
Somewhere in the episode they hide his name on like a locker or something like that, like just to pay homage to this is the first episode, not the first episode since, but I think like kind of in everybody dealing with losing John Ritter.
No, I'm Kimmy. I think I have it written down and was wondering what that might be a reference to. Veer felt at next piece Sam.
He's Sam, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sam was the name of his dad on the show and played by John Ritter.
Yeah. So that like there's that moment where he's in the shower shorts and that's what's behind.
That's what it is.
Cox,
yeah. When he comes out in the shower shorts. For the man with nothing to hide but still wants to.
Yep. Kelso eats a lot of cake. Going through my notes. Yeah,
well,
I don't know.
I'm ready for some quiz.
Yeah, I think it's quiz time. I think we've. Is there anything else that you want to say? Will, this is your party here, so.
No, I just think it's one of those ones. I mean, this is the second highest rated episode of Scrubs after the finale.
It is officially now the highest rated, and that's determined in like the really weird way of it just has more people who've rated it. Both My Finale Part 2 and this are a 9.7 on IMDb. And there is in the trivia that it's the second highest after My Finale. But now if you look at it, it is ranked at number 1. And it's because more people have rated this episode. Now, whether that means they're doing watch-throughs, and by the time they get to My Finale, they'll arrive at the same conclusion, and it will bump it up. They're tied at 9.7, and, I mean, like, because the Shawshank Redemption is the number 1 on, like, the 250 list, and then The Godfather, but they have the same rank. It's just the number of people who have rated it is what breaks the tie.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I see. So, I mean, yeah, it could be that whether people did only get, 4 seasons in, and they were like, oh, these were episodes were good, and they haven't got to. It would be, if you're doing a watch through to not get to the finale at some point, but it would be, maybe that is why people do this. But the fact that you had one of the first real guest stars happy to come back, and after, in between doing a bit of Scrubs, he's gone off and done such a body of work, and then gone, I'll come back and do some more Scrubs. That was fun. I think just plays testament to, A, how much fun the show was, but also what a person Brendan Fraser is to be like, he's not going to be the guy who's like, oh, no, I'm not. Like you said, like Tara Reid as well, showing up for that 2-3 lines and then happily doing that for the show. It kind of shows, I think, that the love people had for, maybe it's for Bill Lawrence, maybe it's for the show itself, maybe the cast as a whole. Everyone was happy to come back around and do stuff. And the names they get following this, I mean, they only get bigger and better as you go through the seasons. And you get, Ryan Reynolds turns up, Michael J. Fox gets a great arc, Dick Van Dyke has his little moments. There's these names that come through where how many, have they all sat around in a TV writer's room and gone, oh, wouldn't it be great if we could get XYZ to come and be on our show? And I feel like Scrubs just did go and get them. And maybe it's, I'm going to say it's all because of Brendan.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
He started it.
It's also, I do like everyone that you've mentioned was a prominent doctor at some other point, like Dick Van Dyke with Diagnosis Murder and Michael J. Fox and Doc Hollywood. Like, they also use that very tenuous connection to be like, well, you were a doctor before, you want to be a doctor here.
It's like this white coat.
Used to dressed up like a proctologist and just hang out in LA.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's the normal,
you know what? I mean, the Brendan Fraser of it all is the fact that in My Hero, he just goes into remission. They don't kill him off in that episode, which says we want to use him again. And then I think what doesn't get enough play in this episode for me, and maybe it gets enough for other people, I have 2 people who are going to respond to what I'm about to say right now. He doesn't die because of the leukemia. He goes into cardiac arrest, and, like, there's no real explanation for why. Like, we don't know if it was because he was no longer in remission. We don't know if it was just, like, a health issue in that moment. It's just he went into cardiac arrest. It should have never happened. And that's really interesting. Right?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's purposely where they land on it. Yeah, it's
Well, they had to keep it general because they're obviously talking about the other patient that he's worried about.
Yeah.
And Cox has the line, he's not going to die in the next half an hour. You'll be okay.
Yeah.
And then to be, 20 minutes after you left, he went into cardiac arrest. Obviously, that's why, I guess the reveal as it comes around that it was Ben is that it's not, Ben's in such good health and happy and bouncing around at the beginning that you in no way consider him to be possible of dying at that stage.
Yeah.
And obviously you get Dr. Cos's warning of, cancer's the kind of thing you want to check up on once in a while.
Right.
But that doesn't lay enough of a seed to be like, oh, he definitely has it again and he's about to die.
Yeah.
But specifically his reaction of, that shouldn't have happened. Yeah, that's a good point. There was no indication that this guy was having any sort of heart problems. So...
But then to be like, oh, the kid messed up. Sounds like JD did something to Ben.
Right.
So whether it was during he's like, I'll go get tested and I'll make sure I'm still good. Whether during that, range of testing, something happens to Ben.
Yeah.
Which is why Dr. Cox can start blaming everybody else. But it was obviously, he will blame himself for not being there because he is convinced that if he was there, nothing would have gone wrong.
Right.
And that's, I think, what they kind of come back to in the second. The second of Dr. Cox's breakdowns. He does everything right in the next one, and people still die. And you have to bring it in to be like, it's not just because you weren't there, or just because you made that decision. Sometimes stuff just happens, which is I think he comes to the realization of towards the end of this episode. But then really, when it hits back in My Lunch and My Fallen Idol, that's when you see Cox doing everything he can, but it's still being wrong.
Yeah. I know I get why you guys love the show. I'm sorry that it fell out of favor with me so lightly, but also I think it would have done. I mean, I'll admit that I watched season 5. I watched all of season 5, and then at the middle of season 6, I'm like, you know what? I'm past it again.
It's definitely. I think as shows go, like I said, I use it now as background noise. I can have it on and happily pick and choose and jump in and drop into episodes. But I still definitely have my favorites. And there are seasons where it is not as strong as, or even episodes within seasons where it's not as strong as the other ones. And whilst every show has those kind of filler episodes because sometimes you just have to, maybe Scrubs has a few more of those than other shows might have, which you drop in and out of. And if you, like I said, you pick up that DVD set of just the Tom Cavanaugh episodes, they're all great. Whether it's with Tom Cavanaugh or not, it's, those, because of Tom Cavanaugh, or not, those are great episodes.
Yeah.
But if you then go, the ones in between those ones, maybe they didn't quite hit for whatever reason. There's going to be those drop-offs, and I think potentially there is a bit where Scrubs has a couple more of those filler episodes than you'll see in other things. And even they admit that in half the podcasts they do when they're talking about them. They're like, this episode really didn't land. Maybe when we were filming it, we were having an off day or whatever it might be, but we definitely didn't do this episode as well as it could have been done.
Interesting. Sorry, I'm taking it in and thinking about the nature of art, and yeah, it's an interesting, yeah. Thank you, Will. Thank you for these episodes. But I have to say to both of you guys, this was the moment for the Stay Report to open itself up to a whole new audience of listeners, but the Scrubs contingency of people out in the world, and then you both blew it by bringing up season 9 stuff.
No.
But we brought it up at the very beginning so they can fast forward through that and then just enjoy the rest of the episode.
Someone brought up Aziz Ansari. Are you unsorry about that?
But isn't he season 8?
Is he season 8? I thought that he was season 9. Thought it was.
No, that's when they're still in the main hospital, and it's Dr. Cox fires him at the beginning.
Okay. Then I'm.
So I think he's Scrubs proper. Not.
Okay.
That's when you've got Courtney Cox coming in and all that fun stuff happening.
I have no idea what you're talking about. Let's hope I know the quiz.
Kelso retires, and they have to get a new chief of medicine, and Courtney Cox comes in for a few seasons because she was doing Cougar Town at the time, and Bill Lawrence likes to use people for multiple shows. I'm still waiting for Zach Braff to be in Ted Lasso. I know he's directed episodes, but I'm waiting for him to show up somewhere.
Well, he's a regular character. That was for Sejan, and hopefully he picked up on it.
You're a regular character.
You're a regular character. And then the janitor's Ponce's dad. Specifically Neil Flynn.
No, specifically.
All right. I mean, let's
all right.
To the quiz.
The only way to round all this off is to quiz it up.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Again, we are rolling through with our new style of 5 questions about the episode. Some focus on Brendan Fraser, some just randomly about things that have happened. Some which we've definitely mentioned in our conversation so far.
And the current score?
Current score is 12.5 to Devon, 13.5 to Seed.
Pretty sure Sejan has 14.5.
It's okay, Dev. It's fine. Even with a handicap,
14.
we'll be.
Yeah, he got 6 points and he had
14.5.
8
Sorry,
points.
Season is 2 points ahead. I thought it was 14.5, 12.5. Because Devin didn't know the blanks.
Collusion. That's why. You guys are having off-mic conversations without me.
Well, you disappeared. We weren't sure where you were. You disappeared.
I said I was going to go
It's
get
your
a
fault.
beer. Well, you both disappeared to get beers, so I got a beer.
Like, I mean, people
Keep me all
not to
hands.
go behind the counter, but not behind the counter, behind the curtain. It's 10 a.m. over here, so beer is not quite where I'm at. But coffee was nice. Actually, it wasn't very good coffee. I need to buy some new beans. But anyway, that's my own problem. All right, let's go. My screw-up quiz. Question number 1. Dr. Cox and Ben play a game that would probably get you cancelled these days. What game do they play?
Can't believe we didn't talk about it in the 55 minutes before this. It's like my least favorite part of this.
I have to be honest. It actually does not offend me too much, but we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it when we get to the answers.
Yeah, we can dive back into things.
Because of how much they clearly love each other, it's just fucking cute. I will put it that way.
Yeah, it's a beautiful game they clearly have played their whole life.
Because of the feeling that existed in the world at the whole time, at the time, is a gross reflection of what our entertainment was telling us. I'm going meta, baby. Question 2.
Question 2. Why does Dr. Cox keep laughing at Elliot when she is asking him where to find Carla?
Yeah.
Yeah. Question 3. Complete the quote. Shower shorts. To the man who has nothing to hide. ...
Jeez.
Yeah, we talked about a lot. We should have done the quiz first.
But then no one would stick around. This is the carrot.
But then Devin wouldn't get any answers right.
Ah, fuck you. I knew that one.
Oh, yeah. Shots fired.
I brought it up! Listen
Staging
back!
gave the quote. So.
Yeah, I did kind of just scream it out.
Question 4. JD is invited to the birthday party because he has his own what?
A present from me to myself.
You son of a bitch. Congratulations, Sejan.
And question 5, to bring it all home, to what is considered one of the saddest lines across all of television. What does JD say to Dr. Cox at the very end? Again, a quote we have used in this episode. Well, now we've had the quiz theme song.
It also, like, just a comment on this moment, but like you point out like the ways in which this episode really kind of points out some mental health issues and then never addresses them. I would argue, like, not to any good end, but I would still argue Scrubs in general really points to JD probably having some real mental health issues.
Oh yeah, no,
never addressed.
So I guess the issue
usually
is like it's one thing when it's just JD, right?
But the literal running theory on this show with how it was going to end was that they were going to find out JD had a tumor and that everything he'd been imagining this whole time had all been caused by some like health issue that he had. Well, like it is such a noticeable thing in his character that there's clearly something wrong that like people thought that was how they were going to end the series.
All of the gaslighting.
Dive into the janitor being potentially imaginary for the first series.
Right.
You dive into all these things where it's like, is it all in JD's mind, or did he make up a bunch of friends, or is he just done? Are we still really in JD's first day and he's imagined a whole life for himself?
Oh yeah, the ways in which everything that happens with Cox parallels the back half of the first episode with JD is interesting too.
Yeah, I mean, it's all gaslighting is the real theme of this trilogy of Brendan Fraser episodes.
Gaslighting the audience specifically,
Yeah.
I would say maybe.
Like it is. Oh, Brendan Fraser's there. We're gonna lie to the audience. Let's do.
Yeah,
this.
there's a number of those where like a good, I don't know, at least half of the episode, like if you take all three together, at least half of it is an imagination.
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
right.
Including bits from the first one, second one, and most of this episode. It's all not actually like that whole series of Dallas. There was a dream.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
at least it's an ongoing TV trope, but it works sometimes. And
It
no one
works.
gets annoyed
It
when
works
happens.
self-contained, and maybe like 2, 3, at the most 4 episodes. When a whole season didn't happen, I feel betrayed.
I mean, I feel that's fair. You know, that's a lot of your life and a lot of hours
Yeah, like and
to
at
be
the end-
completely ignored by the writers.
looking at you, season 9 of Roseanne. I mean, I think we all have answers written.
I hope so. Otherwise, it really defeats the purpose.
First thing I have written down is Waddle Seed. No.
That is the game they play. You are correct.
They play gay chicken.
Yeah, so
Okay.
look, it is definitely gay panic. Like that is the butt of that joke, right?
Yeah.
Like, so fuck
Yeah.
that noise.
And
It's just like it didn't hit me as bad as some other stuff. Honestly, within Scrubs, like rewatching Scrubs,
yeah.
there's all sorts of weird moments of like, you know, and to their credit, like the relationship between JD and Turk is very much celebrated and explored. But then it's always caveated by like the no homo like tagline, right? Like that's really what it is. Is it's basically like this is pre hashtag no homo, but it's definitely that exact same feeling, right?
yeah, I
Well,
mean,
yeah, even like when they talk about sharing a bed and they're like, "Oh, we top and tail, so the naughty bits can't lock in." It's like you're just two dudes who share the bed together. Nothing was going to happen.
Yeah, you didn't have to
But it's
really
like this
go
kind of
that
little-
far with it.
Yeah, there's a little bit of paranoia that, oh my god, we shared a bed with the guy. They probably would have maybe tried to have sex. But no, they're just friends who slept
Well,
in the
knowing
same
what we
bed.
know about JD in this show, maybe they would have.
yeah, right.
Well, yeah,
Turk,
maybe.
you want to stay around? You're gonna have to fuck me.
Jesus.
That's how you get cast in Scrubs. Cool. Anyway, question 2.
Master of Puppets,
Why-
Ben.
Yeah, this is the moment where Ben puppets her, right? Like that's the joke.
Yes, it is the puppet thing with the excellent commitment where he falls off the bench at the end,
Yeah.
not hurting himself because it's okay, he's already dead.
He's a ghost. Pay attention.
Doesn't have a camera at that point. I didn't want to give that one away because I honestly thought it was going to be one of your questions. But one of the big reveals in this one is that Ben loses his camera once he dies.
I'm gonna
Well, he
carry
does
it
because
till
he
the
has the
day I
line, I'm
die.
going to carry this till the day I die.
Yeah.
And then no longer has a camera.
I specifically didn't bring up the fact that Leonard, who was introduced in the very first Brendan Fraser episode, plays a semi-prominent role in this episode. Nice hand.
Brian Afro.
I meant the cards. There's a 3 of
Yeah,
clubs
you know.
there, too.
There is the same card. It's an ongoing motif. Question 3. Complete the line. Shower shorts. For the man who has nothing to hide.
But still wants to.
And they come with a complimentary shower wallet.
Snap and hurt myself.
I actually did like that. I think my favorite bit about that is the wallet payoff because of the brand name so predominantly on the wallet.
The branding on the
got-
wallet makes the joke work. I will agree.
Well, yeah, because shorts is spelled with a Z, it makes it even better.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're for children, JD.
Yes. Yeah, anyone who's got a Velcro wallet is having fun with that one. But, you know, I could see why shower shorts would sell.
I mean, yeah, for that exact situation, showering in a public space.
I mean, they don't have the co-ed locker. Oh, they might still have the co-ed locker at this point. I can't remember when that gets changed.
Doctors. Hey, we're not doing this. Anyway.
No, but I mean, no,
They've
I don't.
seen a penis before.
I don't think that it makes sense in that scenario. I'm saying, as a market, like being shy in a public shower, I can see why people would purchase that product. Pee noise.
Yeah.
We talk about
Yeah.
SpongeBob yet, or what?
No.
Yeah, let's do question 4 with the answer you just gave. The costume he bought for himself.
It was a gift from me to me.
And, you know, a perfectly valid reason to come to the party, but then also maybe he shouldn't come because Danny's going to be there.
Also, maybe he shouldn't come because he's a grown man who bought himself a SpongeBob SquarePants costume. You know, thinking about
Sometime.
Kink shame. Don't kink shame.
thinking about gay chicken, I want to go back to that. Chicken Little in the movie Chicken Little, is that character trans?
I mean, it is Zach Braff.
That's gonna be the thing I throw out there for this conversation, and then I'm going to walk away.
Okay. Because Holly
You're
Hunter
supposed to be a
did the whole
chicken.
movie.
Right.
Sorry.
Would you prefer if it was called Rooster Little?
Well, that would make no sense, Will.
Are they bringing not Mel Brooks? Are they the complete opposite of Mel Brooks? Mel Gibson? Are they bringing Mel Gibson back for Chicken Run 2?
No, actually, the Thandie Newton is going to be the lead lady chicken, and someone else is playing the lone free ranger. I don't remember who I just saw. They just announced the cast list on Friday.
I hope it's Josh Duhamel for reasons that I will talk about on the show proper.
I know. I just saw it. I was surprised that I was actually impressed with how many people are coming back, like secondary chickens, but the two leads have been replaced.
I do love Thandie Newton, though.
I love Thandie Newton as well. We have one
Do you ever
question
think you
left.
get to use the phrase secondary chickens?
The giblets, right? Those are the secondary chickens.
I don't think we should
They're
make
tough,
them
I'll
act.
give them that.
Question 5.
Okay, and to the final question of this beautiful history month, and I will say thank you for allowing me here and for talking about Scrubs with me, because it's something I do with myself anyway, so it's nice to have other people listening. Question 5. What line does JD say at the end is considered one of the saddest lines in TV?
Where do you think you are right now?
Where do you think we are right now?
Oh, how close are we going to this? Because it is where do you think we are, not where do you think you are. So do we
I
say
will give
technically
him-
Devon's
Sure,
more right?
Sure, I will give him the 1 point. Yeah.
You will do that for him so it gets even slightly closer,
I mean,
but you still
I
win.
did write, where do you think we are? I didn't say that. I thought right now was just, it was fun to mirror Siegen. I could send the photo. I still lose by 1 point.
You do still lose by 1 point, but hey, 1 point, it could have been 2 if we were being more relaxed about things.
Congratulations,
But
Siegen.
so,
Long
Airheads,
time
the
coming,
Scrubs.
brother.
Man, fucking this episode is a tough one. But yeah, we started this whole thing talking about the idea of Brendan Fraser and the idea that he's one of those actors that you really get the feeling that he just loves working, right? Like
Yeah.
like he doesn't say no to projects unless there's something really like that's just not going to work for him. And so seeing him kind of just, I don't know, it feels like stepping down from the mountain, right, to come and do a television show, especially at this time. This is not the golden age of TV yet, right? That's still to
No.
come in a few years. So the idea that he is this guy that is going to be going from Oscar-nominated films 2 years ago, 3 years ago, to then step down and do these Scrubs episodes is fascinating. Like, it's cool to watch him do this kind of stuff.
Well, yeah, he's not doing it like, oh, I need the money, so I better go and do some TV work. It's like,
No, he allows...
it's a man who wants to do this work.
Yeah, and it brings a layer, an air of gravitas to the whole thing that they have this movie star coming and being in their episode, right?
Oh, definitely.
Oh, hugely. I think it's kind of the gateway guest star to everything else that happens in the next few years of Scrubs, where it is just built upon, and you get these, at the time, maybe not, he might have been the biggest name they had in those early seasons, but then you get people who were in it then, and you look at them now, and you're like, well, you are now one of the biggest movie stars in the planet.
Yeah.
But, back in those days, you weren't, but he was, and he still was like, yeah, I'll come do that stuff. That looks fun.
Yeah, I mean,
Without having been in Spin City first, like everybody else.
we talk hyperbolically about the effects that Brendan Fraser has had on the world of Hollywood, But that golden age of television you're talking about, Sejin, I'm pretty sure we could trace a direct line from the fact that this guy, who is at the top of his game, having just completed the sequel to The Mummy, right? Which then goes on to spawn everything. And then this season, he comes back and does this episode. It's the same year that Crash, the, like, best picture movie that he's in, that we're not going to talk about this year because we've already talked about it. Like...
And it's Crash.
And it's Crash, yes. But think about that. Like, he's in this. Crash comes out May 6th, 2005. Oh, well, really? That's a crazy release date. Why does it say 2004? Forget everything that I said. That's insane. When did it win the Best Picture? 2005? That my mind is blown. Oh, I wish that this hadn't been a thing I tried to jump into at the end. My mind was not ready for this.
But but what you were trying to get at is this idea that he is not coming to TV because movies are not working for him right now. Right. He's coming to TV because this is a project that he deems worth his time to do. And that's cool to see, right? Like as somebody that's a fan of The Mummy at the time, I then get to come and see him do this thing. As somebody that's a fan of Monkey Bone at the time, I get to come and see him do this thing.
I liked The Mummy Returns, but we've talked about that in Emptying the Dehumidifier. You can go listen to us in that episode where we celebrate The Mummy 2.
Oh, this has been awesome, though. Thank you, Will, once again.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for bringing an air of gravitas to the Say Report.
We love having you, man, and anytime you want to be here, you just let us know. But if it wouldn't be Brendan Fraser History Month without you. That's just a fact.
I like that I can... if I ever accidentally bump into Brendan, I can be like, by the way, we have this thing we do about you. And it's nice to be a part of that. I'm assuming I'll bump into him soon. He seems to be around.
Of the people who would bump into him, it would probably be you. Mr. Oh yeah, I served Robert Downey Jr. a coffee. Chris Evans' dad is my dentist.
That's not me. He's not my dentist.
That's what you...
We do know somebody that bought weed off of him once, but that's not for a story for us to record.
No, that's a different story for a different time.
It's off my conversation to get blurred.
Yeah. Maybe like episode 500 we'll tell that story. We'll get permission. We'll do all the legal stuff. But that's, again, another story for another time. Will, thank you. Thank you for coming here. Thank you for being a part of this. Thanks for forcing me to watch Scrubs again. This has been an excellent journey for me to go back to the show and like really get into the nitty gritty of why it no longer works for me. And I think I just burned out too soon. I burned too bright and then faded away with this particular show. But I'm glad that it brings you guys joy and that you let me share in that joy. So thanks for that, my friend.
I think it's nice to know that you not that you've come back to it now and gone, oh my God, I was wrong. I should have watched all of these episodes and now I need to go and do a massive deep dive. You kind of are aware and able to admit the fact that there is some great moments and it does hit some really important beats, but not all of them work.
Yeah. But I'll talk about Scrubs with you guys anytime. Even if it means having to watch an episode of Scrubs to do it. There's my final thing. And like, I'm sure you're going to get congratulations next week too, but congratulations, Sejin, on being the grand poobah of Brendan Fraser Quiz of Brendan Fraser 2.
Hey, you've had the title for so many years.
Much like Brendan Fraser, it's about damn time. All right, so if you've enjoyed what you've listened to here, what the Say Report is every Monday. You can listen to it. If you have any comments, quotes, critiques, if you want us to watch an episode of Scrubs, you send that to us on Twitter at the Say Report. And if you also want to get in touch with Sejin with any of your comments or anything like that, that's the best way to get in touch with him since he is no longer on Twitter. Good for him. Also, every time I talk about Twitter and these out of space, out of time ones, I'm like, I feel like I'm playing with a hot potato, right?
Yeah. Will Twitter still exist, or will we be deemed assholes for even mentioning it? We'll find out. And if you want to reach out to Dev with your steamy pictures of your shower shorts, you can find him at Devin D. Decker.
All right. And Will, the floor is now yours until you throw to yourself. But thank you again for being here from me and I'm sure from Sejin.
There was a lot of silence from Siege in there, suggesting he wasn't happy. But he won. He should
I was
be.
allowing you to throw to yourself there. Sorry.
That's enough. You won. You're in a good mood. You're just enjoying your celebratory time. Go have some champagne.
I'm crying. That's the problem.
It's just so emotional.
Where do you think we are?
It's been wonderful. We are in, to answer that question of where you think we are in Brendan Fraser History Month, the most important month of the year. Not because it's also got my birthday in it, just because it's a great month for a great man. And to throw over to a person who isn't quite as great as Brendan Fraser, but he's doing his best, here I am.
Thank you for listening to the Say Report with your host Devon Decker and Stephen Serwick. Please follow the guys on Twitter and Facebook by searching for The Say Report, and you can always subscribe on your podcast channel so this is delivered straight to you and you can enjoy it every week. With apologies to your mother, we'll see you next time.